Bon après-midi à tous et bienvenue à cette rencontre du comité de dérogation pour la Ville d'Ottawa. Welcome everyone to this hearing of the Committee of Adjustment for the City of Ottawa. We are a quasi-judicial tribunal that holds public hearings to consider Planning Act applications, including minor variants and consents to sever. We're back to being in person for the most part. You can always request to participate remotely if you want. All you need to do is to speak with committee staff about getting registered to do that. We are live streaming on YouTube, and the video and the agenda for today, along with materials, are all going to be archived on our committee website. My name is Anne Tremblay. With me today are my fellow panel members, starting on my right, Member Blatherwick, Member Lecueillier, Member Coakley, and Member Keklikan. So in terms of the procedure, you saw the hearing agenda at the beginning. What I can tell you is we are going to move that around quite a bit today. So I'm going to read out the order that we're going to hear this in. So we're going to go with application number 1, 4, 6, 8, 5, 3, and 7 in that order today. So yes, we know that that warning has been going off. So if you could put your phones on mute, or silent, that would be very much appreciated. Okay, so just know that the panel members sometimes we deal with things fairly quickly, although today we've got a number of presentations. Just do know that the committee members have had a chance to look at all the materials on file. We even have a pre-meet to ensure that we're up on the latest information so that we know exactly what's going on with your file. So, what we really want to hear is oral submissions, anybody who wants to add to the evidence that we already have on file. So as part of the statutory public notification requirements, each applicant is required to post a sign on the property in question before the hearing and to confirm in writing that they've done that, or we can always do a solemn oath. Otherwise, we have to postpone the hearing on that item. So in terms of the process, so the panel can ask for a presentation or can say, we think it's fairly straightforward. We'll move on to just questions from the panel. Do know that at any point in time, if the panel says, we don't really need to hear a presentation, but you want to give a presentation, that's absolutely your right. So be sure that you signal that in advance, and we will hear from you. And PowerPoint presentations are very much appreciated as well. So either we hear the presentation or we go straight to questions. The process is the same. We want to get clarification from the applicant, or agent, and from staff if we need to. Then we go on to the public portion, and that's where we would ask anybody who has an interest in the application to come forward or to come on video, and we would hear from those people. I do have a speakers list. I start with that. Then I'll do a general call out for anyone who might have an interest on the application. In terms of decisions, after we've heard from everyone and we've given the agent a last few words on an application, we can move to a decision. We can either grant an application, we can refuse an application, or we can reserve. Reserving simply means we've heard enough new evidence for us to want to deliberate further, which means we adjourn the overall hearing and reconvene today to make a decision on your application. In all cases, within 10 days, the Committee of Adjustment sends an official written decision and the reasons for the decision to all parties who have requested a copy of that decision. So in terms of our procedural, I don't think we have any minutes. We don't. So I'm going to just ask if there's anyone on the panel today that has a conflict of interest either with our agenda or any of the other two panels' agendas. Member Keklikan.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I will be recusing myself from 2 items. It's number 3, that's Somerset, Sweetland Russell Avenue, and number 7, Sweetland Avenue. They're proposals that are in my community. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Member Keklikan. Anyone else? No? All right, so with that then we will go to Essentially, the first item, which is we have one adjournment before we get going on hearing the application. So the only adjournment I have is for application number 2 that was on the agenda, 256 Northwestern Avenue, looking for agent Koro Kova. I don't know if we have that agent in person or online.
Madam Chair, it doesn't appear that the applicant is online.
All right, so let's step the adjournment down and see if we can get a hold of the agent, because we still need to get concurrence from them on this adjournment. Otherwise, yeah, no, I'd prefer to try and get a hold of them so that we can actually have a discussion. All right, well, that'll take us to our agenda. And as I mentioned, we're going to go with number 1 first. And I believe that in this case, I'm looking for agent Littman. Do we have agent Littman? I take it Mr. Littman is online.
Good afternoon, panel. This is Mitchell Lietman here, a solicitor, agent for the applicant. I'm just trying to enable my camera.
Mr. Littman, can you hear me?
I can. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Hello? Can you hear me now?
Mr. Littman,
Hello?
we're having an issue. We're not either seeing you or hearing you.
Just a notification that we can hear him online.
Mr. Alvarez, we're not hearing you either. I see that you're speaking, so you're on mute. So maybe do we have an issue with our speakers?
Can you hear me now?
All right, Mr. Littman, we can see you. We can't hear you, though. No, still have an issue with the sound.
Madam Chair, apologies. We're being told that we can hear the audio in the live stream. We just can't hear it in the room. So we'll have to, we'll try and troubleshoot this as quickly as we can.
Sorry for the pause, everyone. We're just gonna wait for the technology to catch up with us here.
Testing, 1, 2, 3. Can you hear me now?
Test. Hello, everyone. Can you hear me now?
We'll give it just another couple minutes and then we'll see if we can move on to another application where maybe here.
Did anyone hear me? To make this one heard, I think I tested the microphone and it should be working.
So much for my order today, it seems, on my agenda. So. Okay, so maybe we will move on to, I see a couple of people here in the audience that are the agents for certain applications. So let me see, where are we here? All right, so let's go. Mr. Robinson, you're here for number 6 on Richard Avenue. Come on forward. Let's hear from you. And we'll go there. Now, I understand, Mr. Robinson, that you need to have the oath done because we don't have your stat deck. Is that correct?
I did send it in yesterday.
Have you got the stat deck for this one? Yeah, okay. Oh, number 4? We're on number 4.
No, you're on 6, I think.
Sorry, terribly sorry. I'm on 6. Yes, you see what happens? It doesn't take much. All right, sorry about that, Mr. Robinson. No, you're good. Okay, you're good. We've got it. Do have a housekeeping item for you though on your notice. So what we read was, I'll go through here. It's the proposal, according to your notice, is that the applicant wants to construct a 3-unit townhouse dwelling. My understanding, though, is you're actually going to 9 units. So it's 3 principal townhouse dwellings with 2 additional units per principal dwelling for a total of 9 units altogether.
That is correct.
And that was not on your notice. Have you had any consultation with neighbors to ensure that they understood the extent of units being proposed?
We met with, myself and the project designer met with surrounding property owners about 4 weeks ago, delivered information to them with my contact details. We managed to speak to 3 of the 4 and describe the project as a townhouse, 3-unit townhouse development. The one property owner who was not home at the time is the one property owner that has since phoned me, and I spoke to him a week ago Tuesday. And that is the property owner that has sent in a comment wanting assurances that fencing issues will not be impacted.
All right, what I didn't hear you say, Mr. Robinson, is that you are clear to convey that 9 units to the 2 out of the 3, and then Mr. Daniel, that those are the numbers of units being proposed. You mentioned the 3 principal townhouses, but I didn't hear you say that you mentioned.
It was not conveyed to them that there were ADUs in this building. They are permitted as of right under the bylaw and through recent amendments through the province to the Planning Act.
That's correct.
Yep.
But what we've found in the past, and I think we've had this discussion with other agents, is sometimes we get to the hearing and then it's a whole discussion about, well, that's not what I've understood the project to be. And it's really a waste of time to have those discussions on the floor. It's far more transparent, full disclosure, here's the number of units. So we've been trying to encourage agents in their notice to be abundantly clear about that so that we can avoid having discussions about, well, how many units is it? Because that's pretty basic information once we get to this point in the hearing, once we have you before. So I just wanted to convey that to you and would ask that you make sure that your notices reflect that, even though it's as of right, I understand, but you're coming in with a proposal, just the diagram itself, we looked at it and said, it looks like there's more than just 3 units to us. So why not just be forthright about that and make sure that everybody's aware when you're consulting with them. So I just thought I'd put that out there. So we are going to amend the notice to staff, just to be sure. Let's amend the notice. I want to make sure it reflects the number of units the way that I read it. Hopefully you can read it back. Okay. So enough of that. So we're going to go on to just questions then, Mr. Robinson, on your project. So I'm opening it up to our panel members. Anyone have any questions? All right, I'm not seeing anybody come forward. So I do have one for you about the height increase. Can you please explain why a height increase of 0.7 meters is required?
Certainly. So as you've just mentioned, this is one primary unit and two ADUs per unit. And in order to have I believe it's 9-foot floor to ceiling height between each floor, and to have enough living space in the basement level that is above ground, that is why we need a 10.7 meter height. The zoning, which is R3A, does allow a triplex. And in the R3A zone, a townhouse has a 10-meter height limit, and a triplex has a 10.7 meter height limit. So if this was a triplex development, it would not be triggering any height variance. And the new bylaw, version 2, was released about 5 weeks ago. It would allow 11 meters. So it doesn't have I know it's not in full force and effect.
Well, yeah, unfortunately, that's the real truth of it. We
Yeah.
hear it all the time, right?
Yeah.
But we're dealing with the policy context that's in
Flux.
effect today.
Yeah.
So I know we're going in a different direction and a more permissive one, which is okay, but you can always hold off on your application until that's in force if you want.
The other thing is that the roof line is a flat roof. So typically if you had a 10.7 meter height limit on a peaked roof, the top of the roof would actually be in excess of 11 meters. So it's a 10.7 throughout. It's not a peaked roof that would exceed the 10.7.
Now, if you were doing a triplex on one of the lots rather than a townhouse, what other minor variances might you need, though?
Well, right now, the property is one lot, and that is the intent, to have it as one lot. So I don't believe that it's of the right size to have a triplex. It would be quite a small triplex, and it depends on whether the triplex that you're asking about would be fronting onto Richard, or it would be fronting onto Clementine, because then all the lot lines all get twisted around. But when you're on a corner lot and you have one primary entrance facing one street and the other two are facing another street, you're into a very specific zoning requirements.
All right, thank you for that. Any questions from any members at this point on the application? Okay. All right, then with that, let's see who we have on our speakers list for number 6. I believe Mr. Daniel is the individual we were speaking about a little bit earlier. Do we have Mr. Daniel on? Okay.
Yes, hi there. I'm sorry about the lighting.
All right, Mr.
so we-
Daniel, just want to make sure we can hear you because we can't hear you at the moment.
Just a moment. How about now? Can anybody hear me?
Sorry, over to our committee staff. Did we resolve our issue or are we still?
Is it better now? Can you hear me? I'm sorry.
We hoped we might. It appears that it hasn't been resolved, so we're just trying to troubleshoot it now, Madam Chair.
If I could interject, the project designer also was supposed to log in. He's maybe having the same issues, which would be Amjad Shendi.
So we're getting them on. It's just we can't seem to get the sound in this room because my understanding is they can hear. We're all online. Everybody can hear everybody, but and we have that issue. Is it possible to get Mr. Daniel to maybe call in? Will that make a difference? Maybe we can just use the phone until we have.
Can you hear me now?
Can
anybody hear me
The
now?
issue, Madam Chair, seems to be the audio through Zoom into the room. A phone would be connecting to the meeting the same way.
Sorry, for whatever reason, there was an echo here. So can you just repeat that?
We can try.
Yeah, sorry, the echo was my fault. I was just wondering if I could maybe, anyway, sorry.
We could. Apologies, Madam Chair. Try having the speaker phone in.
I think that's maybe, we might have to just go that route today. We can't seem to resolve it.
So what phone number do you have to call to dial in? Can you write that?
We'll provide them with the phone number. It's possible that it may not resolve the issue if the meeting audio is being fed into the room and not coming through the speakers, but we can give it a shot.
How about we get Mr. Daniel to call us and see? All right, there you go. Mr. Daniel, would you mind just trying that number and seeing whether or not it'll make a difference?
Hi there, can anybody hear me?
All right, our sincere apologies for this IT issue. We do have someone coming, so I'm going to just suggest that we recess for 15 minutes, give them a chance to get into the room, and then we'll pick up from there. So feel free to leave the room and do what you need to do for 15 minutes. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Testing, testing. Can you hear?
Yeah.
Hi, I'm just trying to do some troubleshooting to see if we can get this working in the chamber.
Okay, that's fine.
Testing 1, 2, 3.
Testing, testing.
Can you hear us?
Yes, I can still hear you.
I think they can't in the room though.
No, they can't in the room.
Okay.
Can you hear us now? Is it plugged in the back? I'd have to be plugged in the bathroom because we can. How about now? How about now? Can you hear me?
Yes, I can still hear you.
Yes, we can hear you virtually.
Can you hear me in the chamber?
All right, Mr. Robinson, we need you back. We have Mr. Daniel. I think that's where we left off. And Mr. Daniel, where are you? By the way,
Thank you.
thanks for your patience, everyone. And sorry about that little hiccup. Okay, so Mr. Daniel, back to you. I don't believe I see you.
I'm on the phone right now.
All right, okay, that's fine. Great. Oh, works for us. Okay, so Mr. Daniel, I understand that you wanted to speak with the committee, so go ahead. You have 5 minutes.
Okay, thank you very much. I'll be pretty brief. First off, good evening. Good afternoon, everyone. So I'm the resident at the 1547 Clementine Boulevard, which is on the north side of Mr. Robinson's project. And my main concerns there was the replacement of the south fence that was broken from the time that the first demolition took place. And so my main concern really is I just want to ensure that, or have any insurance that the construction project won't expand onto our property. And because I'm just recently being told that our garage happened to be very close to the hydro line, which I wasn't aware of. So if there was, in case if this project needs us to remove our garage or push back our garage away from the line, I don't think that's going to be possible. So, and if it comes to that, of course, they would be, in my belief, they would be in charge of doing it. But I don't believe it'll come up to that. But that's where all my concerns. And also regarding the letters that we received, it only mentioned 3 units. There no mentioning of 9 units in the letter itself. That's it.
All right, thank you, Mr. Daniel. So over to you, Mr. Robinson.
Thank you. I did speak with Mr. Daniel a week ago yesterday, and the sort of subject of our discussion was about the fence. In 2021, a building permit was issued for this property under different ownership, different designers. I was not involved. And they started construction, and there were foundations poured, and they're to within, I think, 1.2 meters of the property line that Mr. Daniel speaks about. And they are, I think, a little bit closer to the hydro wire that is there, which is on our client's property. And then it was given a building permit, and Building Code Services then came to the realization that you can't build to within that close to hydro wires. So the project was abandoned, although the foundations were poured and are still there. Our project is further away. I believe back in 2021, and since then, there was construction fencing put in, and it through, I guess, 4 years of no construction activity, it's suffered. And Mr. Daniel wanted assurances that there wouldn't be any impacts on his property. He mentioned to me that he has children who play in the backyard. He didn't want that to be any hazard. And I indicated to him when we spoke that it would be in our client's best interest to maintain a construction fence during construction and then put in a fence after the construction is all finished. So we have no problems with that, and we have no issue. And the reference to the garage, it is quite close to the property line. I think it's within a meter. It's a detached garage that it belongs to his semi, and it's not our intention to remove it. The foundations are going to be, I think, 3.47 meters away from the property line, so probably 4.5 meters almost from the garage to the new foundations. We have to rip out the existing foundations, which are closer, then put in new foundations, and they would be further away than where the current foundations are. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Any questions on that line? Okay, from the members, all right. So anyone else in the audience, either here today or at home, want to speak to the committee about this proposal for essentially 9 units at 97 Richard Avenue? Okay, just one last question on, for me though. So Mr. Robinson, you essentially explained that on the added building height, it was to accommodate the 3 units. If you went 2 units, of course, you could meet the 10 meters, is that correct?
If it was just one unit on top of each other?
Exactly.
Yes.
All right, thank you so much for that. Okay, the floor is yours. You've got a couple of minutes to recap.
Thank you very much. We believe the variances are minor in nature, and this represents an appropriate development of the land as the proposed density of a 3-unit plus ADU townhouses is an appropriate development for the subject site. It meets the general intent of the official plan as it strengthens the 15-minute neighborhood and creates context-sensitive housing options. Proposal meets the general intent of the bylaw as it is more in line with the purpose of the R3 zoning as a townhouse development as compared to the current single detached dwelling. Planning Department are in support of the application, and we've had discussions with them. And that is it in conclusion. Thank you.
All right, thanks. So looking to the committee, ready for a vote, or would you like to go to reserve? Ready for a vote? Okay, so all those in favor? All right, so for the record, 4 members are in favor. I'm actually dissenting on it. But it's granted, as you know. So thank you very much for your time today.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
All right, bye now. Okay, let's go back then to where we were with before we went to number 6. All right, I'll pedal back here for a moment. Number 4. So we were with Mr. Littman, I believe, for number, is it application number 1?
Number 1, that's correct. Can you hear me?
Hello, yes, thank you for
wonderful.
patience. And all right, so I don't think this, I think there's just some, it's fairly straightforward. Wanted to give you a chance just to give us a really brief presentation on this if you wanted.
Certainly, if you wish, unless you're inclined to just grant the application. There is one condition listed from the planning department that does pose a problem for us, and that was related to Michelle. And that is condition number 1 of the planning condition report, which of the planning report, which requires satisfaction of compliance with the Ontario Building Code with respect to the limiting distance. Concern my client has is in order to meet current building code, it requires substantial alterations to the existing structures, specifically respect to sorry, I don't have the with respect to fire retardants and a sufficient structural steel used in the wall. What is being proposed is to revert to the lot lines as they previously existed prior to merger of these parcels by operation of the Planning Act, and no change to the footprint of the buildings. The renovations being done in respect to which building permits have been taken out are for the interiors, and any improvements being made to the exterior will be more cosmetic than structural. And so in fact, make the changes required in condition 1 would make this cost prohibitive in terms of proceeding with this application. And in fact, to do so with respect to the property at 210 to 212 Durocher would require the current tenants in the property to have to be relocated during construction at great inconvenience, obviously, to them. Something my client does not wish to do. Beyond that, the conditions as presented were all acceptable to my client.
So, Mr. Littman, do you have any proposed wording changes that you would that would be to your satisfaction on this?
Well, really, I mean, seeking compliance with the building code with respect to limiting distance should be struck from it in order to allow this. My client has indicated that he's prepared to do upgrades to exteriors, steel siding, things like that, but not strictly compliant with the code. But the building would be compliant, obviously, with the code that applied at the time of its construction. So perhaps something to the effect of certification that the code, I don't even know if someone would be able to certify that, a designer or otherwise, that it complied with at the time of construction, because records as to what was required at the time of construction of this dwelling might not be available this time. So it would be to remove condition one if at all possible.
All right, so Mr. Littman, is this something that you discussed with staff prior to the hearing? Because
No, this report unfortunately only came to my attention yesterday, so we haven't had time. The report came in late last week, and I only had a chance to review it yesterday morning.
All right, so what I'm going to tell you, Mr. Littman, is that this issue is too complex to deal with on the floor. Certainly, the panel would need to understand the impacts of the condition as written, or any changes to that condition or removal of the condition. We would need to have that from planning staff or building staff in a revised report to us. So I think the only way to deal with this at this point is to actually adjourn your application to the next hearing.
Very well. I will seek my client's instructions to prepare further information to provide to planning staff in order to get that further feedback.
So do be sure to speak with Mr. Geldhart, who is the planner on record for this application. We will be looking for Mr. Geldhart to provide us with some explanation about which condition we're going with. If it's deleted, it's deleted. That's one thing. But if we're doing some changes, we need to understand what the impact is. So thank you very much. And so looking to our committee staff, can we go to, I think we can go to May 21st. I don't think that's a problem. Yeah. All right. So Mr. Littman, let's do that. Let's get our ducks in order. Let's get some explanation back to the committee, and we'll see you on, and I'm going to get a vote. Everyone in favor of? Oh, all right. So is there any, that's a good point. Thank you, Member Coakley. Anyone in the audience want to speak to an adjournment on this to May 21st? We're not hearing the application. We're just speaking to the adjournment now to provide time for added clarification about the application. Anyone online? Nope. All right. With that then, members of the panel, all those in favor to an adjournment to the 21st? All right, it's unanimous. Then Mr. Littman, we'll see you or hear you
2 weeks.
In 2 weeks. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
All right, I know. Okay, well, moving right along then. What happened to my pen? All right, so we're doing May 21st. All right, we're going to hear application number 4, I believe was the next one. And this one is 523 St. Anthony, looking for Agent Joy. Online or online, obviously, not somebody.
The agent is online, Madam Chair.
All right, and just to confirm, we still need the oath for the statutory declaration.
That's correct, Madam Chair.
Well, then we have to start with that. Well, Mr. Joy.
Good afternoon, committee. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. So,
oh, look at that. That's amazing.
Oh, aren't you happy?
I was going to come in person and I just couldn't get there, and I was kicking myself a little bit going, oh no, but I'm glad we got it all resolved. So
no worries, but we do need to get that declaration verbally from you. So I have to read to you. And you'd think I'd have this actually memorized after doing this through COVID for literally 2 years, it seemed, eh? So, okay. Let's see, where is it? Yeah. Oh, it's on the screen. Oh, thank you. That helps. I had it here. But so, Mr. Joy, do you solemnly swear or affirm that the notice provided by the committee was posted at the property to which the application applies? That's condition number 1. For the prescribed number of days before the hearing, that's condition number 2, and that it was legible and clearly visible for the entirety of that regulated time. It's condition number 3. Can you swear or affirm that that's true?
I affirm, Chair, that all conditions have been met.
All right, thank you very much. That's perfect. Okay, with that, I don't believe we need a presentation from you, Mr. Joy, unless you want to provide one.
No, don't need to.
Okay, so we're just going to go straight to questions from the panel on this. Anyone? Member Coakley.
Yeah, this is just more for my information than anything else. I'm just a little bit confused at the end of the day when the lot lines have been adjusted. What does the lot look like?
It just
you have a, I mean, did you have a slide somewhere that shows what the new pieces of land will look like?
Yeah, I sent the plans to the community coordinator. You can pull up, there's a plan number 2 probably, or the second plan is probably the best one that shows the
Perfect.
kind of the full extent of the property.
Can you see that, Mr. Joy? That's on the screen?
I'm not seeing it, but if you're showing the one that there's a blue parcel and a green parcel, that will be the
Perfect.
combined. The new
Exactly,
kind of-
that's the one. It's
yeah.
blue, green,
Okay.
and coral. or
Perfect. Yep. Yep. That will be kind of the new shape of the parcel, which is just better for my client in terms of functionality. Obviously, the existing lot line like is very diagonally right through the lot. So this works better for both kind of the person that's going to be severing the land and the one that's going to be gaining the land.
So if I could just confirm, you're showing part 1 in green.
Yep.
And then there's on our screen, it's a sort of a pinky red on the bottom.
Yep.
And then blue. So the green and the blue are being combined into the single lot.
Correct.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you. I just, as I said, I kind of was having difficulty visualizing it from the black and white copies.
That is not a problem at all.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
All right, thank you. Anyone else with some questions? Can I have the gallery view? Thank you. No other questions. Okay, so over to my speakers list for number 4. I don't have anyone here. So is there anyone on my list, anyone in the audience or online like to speak to this application? Not seeing anybody come forward. So Mr. Joy, if you want to recap or it's up to you.
No, I think I'm good at this time, Chair, but I don't have any issues with the conditions or anything like that. Everything's been good so far. Staff have dealt with it. We had, no concerns. So I'm good to go.
All right, with that then, members of the panel, all those in favor? All right, so it's unanimous. Your application is granted. Thank you very
Awesome.
much for your time today and your patience.
Thank you, Chair and rest of committee members. Have a good day.
All right, thank you. All right, so I've done that one. Just to staff for a moment, did we actually reach Agent Korobakova?
Madam Chair, committee staff reached out. We haven't received a response.
All right, so what would you recommend we do with this then?
Madam Chair, as an additional application is required and recognizing that there's no one representing the application here, committee staff would recommend adjournment sine die.
All right, let's, let's just deal with that one next, and then it's off our books. So is there anyone who wants to speak to that application either here or online? And this is application number 2 for 256 Northwestern Avenue. We're recommending adjournment sine die, which means reapplication. A minor variance is required, an additional one. Okay, all right, members of the panel, all those in favor of adjournment sine die? Yeah, okay, for the record, it's adjourned, and we're striking that one from our list at this point. Okay. So I see that we've got Ms. Pearl. Ms. Pearl, did you want to address the adjournment?
Actually, I just want to agree with everyone that it's a good move. So Champlain Park is always at the committee meetings ever since 2007. We haven't missed any, so I'm not missing this one. Anyway, yes.
All right, thank you, Ms. Pearl. We love that dedication, by the way, so thanks so much for that. Okay, so with that then, and I'm trying to keep my, so we've dealt with number 1, which is adjourned. 2, we're holding off on 3. We've done 4, and we've done 6 as well. All right, so that takes us to number 8, which I believe Ms. Agent Smith is here, Susan Smith, so come on down. All right, so I'm just going to ask you to introduce who's with you today. Sorry, speaker.
There we are, sorry. This is Tan Do, my assistant.
All right, so just catch us up. I think we had already started to hear on this application. Is that correct? Just catch us up as to what happened the last meeting.
We adjourned the meeting to give us time to discuss with the neighbors the project. Madam Chair, I did resubmit the drawings.
How about we have a presentation then? I take your presentation has those revised drawings?
That's right, yes.
Let's hear your presentation then.
Great.
Go ahead.
Thank you. As I mentioned, we've met with the neighbors. If we could go to the second slide, it shows the grading plan that we had discussed the retaining wall at the previous meeting at the back. We didn't have this grading plan at the last meeting. I've sent it to the neighbors. There was concern about it. We've had a lot of discussion around it. Where that retaining wall is shown, there's a garage that will be demolished. And I've added the image on the right from the Geo Ottawa. I'm not sure if you can see I've traced the proposed building on top of the existing one. And it shows that our building is going to actually have a smaller footprint. And then if you go kitty corner down, there is a new building at that location, that large rectangle, and that is a similar height to our building. So if we go to the next slide, you'll see that's the building on Henny that I was just talking about, kitty corner to our site. Now, if we could go to slide 6. I've presented the previous slides. I don't know if you want to see them over again, or we just go to the ones I've revised. Okay, slide 6 now. That's the site plan we had been discussing before. We've noted the retaining wall on the rear property line, and we've noted screening around the rooftop units. We had discussions last meeting about the sound from air conditioning units, and now we've agreed to put the units on the roof with screening around them. And we also I just realized we can have 2 more bike parking spaces at the bottom of those exterior stairs, and which I've sent today to the committee for the floor plan of the basement, showing where we would put 2 bike parking. Yeah, there you are there. And now if we can go back to that slide 6. We've also installed an enclosure screen around those exterior stairs, a metal screen with metal flashing around the wood posts. So if we go to slide 9, please. So I've noted in the bottom left corner a chart if we had asked for 8 units and then asked for relief from 8 units to 10 instead of the other way around. We apply for 10 and the variances that go with the 10. So that chart shows that if we'd applied for 8 units, we would have met the lot width and the lot area and the setbacks. So we would only have needed the accumulated landscaping in the rear yard. And the reason a small setback of the rear yard setback and encroachment for the stairs. And the reason we have that problem, I'm not sure if you recall, but perhaps we could go back to slide 6. We do have a right-of-way, the top right corner, that shows a schematic of yellow of that whole area that is a right-of-way to the neighbor for their turning to get into their garage. So that limits how much landscaping we can put in the rear yard. And outlined in red here again is the footprint of the existing building. I agree we're going to 2 more stories than what's there now, but you can see that the existing building is quite close to the front yard property line and the south property line. And that's my presentation.
All right, thank you very much. Just a quick question that I want to confirm for the record. we are deleting a variance G, correct?
Yes, that was discussed. Actually, may I just would like to summarize what we discussed with the neighbors, if you would like, from our meetings. Is that?
Okay, but then I'd like to go back to these variances because what I want to know is which ones are really just a regularization of an existing condition and which ones apply to the new development. All right, so go ahead, whichever one you want to proceed with.
Okay, I just wanted to say with our meeting, we discussed, well, I've pretty well pointed out everything that we discussed. One other item was the lighting, that they were concerned about lighting, and we agreed to put lighting pointing downwards, not into their into their buildings, and also an agreement with the neighbor with the shared right-of-way that we would redo the asphalt on the pavement that's disturbed and provide parking passes for their tenants. Thank you.
All right, can we go back to the list then of the minor variances? Okay.
Yes.
So having deleted G, we're left with A to F. Can you tell me which ones are specific to the new development and which ones are existing conditions?
I'm not sure what you mean. The lot width and lot area are existing conditions.
All right, so I'm just wondering whether or not, for example, because you said you're reducing the footprint, but in some cases, the footprint is staying the same as what you have now, right? So I guess I'm wondering how many of these minor variances are being requested to simply validate an existing condition as opposed to it being associated directly with a construction element. Like a new footprint element.
If I understand clearly, the south yard setback, we're asking for 1 meter. And right now, they're right up against the property line. So we're moving towards compliance with the bylaw. The bylaw requires 1.5 meters. But the whole building is going to be demolished, the existing building. And we're putting in a new building.
I understand that. I understand that. It's just that you have right now existing setbacks that are considered, well, I guess you'd have legal non-conforming rights on those setbacks if you were using them again. I just wanted to know whether or not sometimes applicants choose to regularize them and sometimes they don't. I'm just asking if that was part of your plan.
We're not choosing to regularize. We're just going with the new bylaw, with the bylaw.
You've answered my question.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you. All right. Any other questions from the members? Yes, Member Coakley.
So maybe just as kind of as a follow-up to your question, Madam Chair, could we go back to the slide that had the 8 units?
That's slide 9, last slide.
So not this one, yeah.
Yes.
So maybe I'm just a little confused here. So you're saying, if I understand correctly, you're saying that if you only had 8 units in this building instead of the 10 that you would like, you would be in full compliance with the bylaw?
We're still asking for minor variances for a small amount on the rear yard setback.
And that you explained because of the right of way with the neighbor.
Well, sorry, the right of way is the landscaping and the encroachment of the stairs.
Sorry, Ms.
Oh,
Smith, can I just interrupt for a minute? I would ask the people in the audience, please, to take your discussion outside because it's actually disturbing our discussion of having trouble concentrating on our speaker. Okay, as soon as that discussion is done, then Ms. Smith, go ahead.
we're asking for a small variance on the rear yard setback, and that's to improve the interior of the building. We're asking for the landscape area variance and the encroachment of the stairs, and that is because the right-of-way, existing right-of-way, we can't meet the landscaping because of the right-of-way, and also with our design, we can't meet the rear yard setback of this, how much a staircase can encroach onto a rear yard.
If I could pursue that point though, but were you to only have 8 units, perhaps your footprint might be slightly different and you might not need, because as you're aware, the issue, the zoning bylaw says 8, and there's concerns being expressed by various people in various parts of the city about, the city established a limit of 8, and now everybody wants 10. So I'm just kind of trying to tease out, if you were at 8, could you comply with the bylaw?
Well, again, that depends on the design. We could still come and request. It's a 2% difference. It's fairly minor. We could have asked for some nice larger apartments. Right now, we're supplying more apartments.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you.
All right, anyone else? No? All right, let me see who we've got on our speakers list for today. Hang on. All right, so we're on number, let's see. All right, so it looks like we've got both Mr. Gray and Joyce Henry. I'd like to hear from Joyce Henry first, please. Take it we have Miss Henry online.
Hi, yes, I'm here. I'm just have to join through a separate. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. So the floor is yours. You've got 5 minutes. Go ahead, please.
Okay. Thank you so much. I had presented at our previous meeting, and my next door neighbor presented at the previous meeting as well, but they're actually out of town right now. But we are the 2 neighbors behind the property, and so very impacted by it. We certainly appreciate the consultations that have been undertaken, because that wasn't done previously, and some concerns have been addressed. But I think the major concern remaining is the size of the building on the footprint. So I do find it a bit disingenuous when the agent says that they're reducing the footprint. This might be a technical term, but from our perspective, the size of the building on the footprint that it's asking for is really large, because it's going to be 5 meters higher than the existing building. And the variances, although described as minor, when you put them together, they encroach significantly on the rear, and that impacts where we are. And so the result is that, this quite large building will tower over these 2 houses behind it and be quite close to our yards. So that's my major concern that I want to raise. The building one of the buildings that the agent referenced is the building beside me, so I'm very familiar with the size of it. And there are 2 other buildings on the east side of the proposed building. And I know, Madam Chair, at the last hearing, you mentioned about bylaws and massing and that being an issue that I should take up with the city. And while I appreciate that, and I may do, I'm really concerned about it in this particular instance. So that's why I'm raising it. And so I would ask the committee to consider 2 things. One is that the building only be allowed to have 8 units. And 2, that the variances at the back not be granted. So for the size of the building at the back, there's a variance. The stairs is another, in my view, significant variance, because it puts it that much further back. And because it's very tall, it has an impact. And then also the landscaping. I mean, I think, to my point, I think the agent has underlined that, because she talks about the lack of space to have proper landscaping just on the footprint that exists. So that's what I really wanted to deal with. I have a continuing concern on the garbage not being inside the building. The building next to me has the garbage inside, and it keeps things really clean and tidy, even though there's still rodents. This property is not as clean and tidy. I understand the management will be the same. And so I do have concerns about tenants moving their garbage to the garbage facility, whatever that looks like. I understand will be enclosed. And then that, kind of being spread around the yard as the garbage is transported. But that's a secondary concern. My major concern is really the size and height of the building, given the narrow piece of property that it's on. And I understand that that would require a different building design. I think that's a fair request.
All right, thank you, Ms. Henry. I'm going to ask Ms. Smith, then two questions. On E, what is the current status of the building with regards to the required rear yard? So does the, is there anything that projects today into that rear yard, or is this a new condition?
This is a new condition.
And on F then, in terms of the soft landscaping, do you meet the bylaw requirements today?
No, and I'd like to address that. Right now, the whole backyard is asphalt where there's not a garage. And there's a garage right against Ms. Henry's property. So right now, what she's seeing over her fence, she has a fairly high fence, is a garage that will be demolished and replaced with landscaping.
All right, thank you for that. Then any other questions for Ms. Henry or clarification?
Yes, thank you. I mean, the garage it's not a high fence, it's a regular size fence. All the properties in the neighborhood have the same size fence. And secondly, the garage is not above the fence, which is a very different situation when the building is there with a significant stairway unit at the back, which will be going up to the top of the building. Like with the variances that are requested, even with soft landscaping, it's like 6 meters, I think, from my fence. It's like 20 feet. It's very close. And so when you think about how close that is and how tall and narrow the building is going to be, that is what my concern is.
All right, thank you, Ms. Henry. Just another question on that stair projection. I think we talked about screening. Has that been agreed upon?
Yes, if we could show the elevation drawing, we have agreed with screening, metal screening on around that those stairway. If you want to see the slide showing the screening. There we are.
And is that just wood slats then?
No, we agreed with some metal screening and metal flashing around the wood posts.
All right, okay, thank you so much for that. All right, then we had Mr. Gray as the next speaker. Good afternoon, Mr. Gray.
Sorry, I didn't know I was on the list. I did send in my comments, but one of your members really kind of brought up the concern that I have. And
so sorry, Mr. Gray.
I don't want to take your time up.
So you represent the Westford
I know I do.
Association.
And I wasn't on the speakers list. I didn't ask to be on the speakers list.
Okay.
But I did send my concerns in because of what Mr. Coakley has said, that 8 units versus 10 units, and it's all over the city. And so I don't want to really speak because he's brought that up. Okay, I didn't know I was on the list. I'm just here to observe.
All right, thank you, Mr. Gray. All right, point well taken though. So that's it for my speakers list. Is there anyone else in the audience here today or at home or at the office that would like to address the committee? Oh, sorry, go ahead, Member Blatherwick.
Ms. Smith, I take it this building is in compliance when it comes to height?
Yes, absolutely.
How high will it be?
It's 11 meters and it matches the other 3 buildings nearby.
And and for this zone, the maximum height is 11 meters?
Yes.
Okay, so the height, there's no variance for height?
No.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so if there's no more questions and no more speakers, then it's over to you, Ms. Smith, for a 2-minute recap.
Okay, just to go through the 4 tests, I believe the variances are minor. The lot width, as we've discussed, it would not be, it would comply with for 8 units. And if we have more bedrooms, we would have the same density of people. The lot setback is only 2% over the requirement. The interior side yard is 0.5 meter different and would comply again if it was 8 units. and the stairway. I've explained it caused by the right-of-way and 2.4% difference in the landscaping requirement we feel are minor. It's desirable because there's similar buildings nearby, and this is the direction that the official plan is pursuing. And I know you don't want to hear about it, but it will be in the next zoning bylaw, it will be compliant. And it meets the intent of the bylaw. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Ms. Smith. All right, looking to the committee, reserve or decision? I'm beg your pardon? All right, so we have one member who'd like to reserve, so I think that's what we're going to have to do. So, you know, as I mentioned at the outset, you will get the decision in writing and the reasons for it within the 10 days.
Thank you
All right.
very much.
Thank you
Madam.
very much. Okay, so. Number 5 is what we're looking for next. And I believe on number 5, who have we got? We've got, hang on. Yeah, I think we're looking for Mr. Balduc. Are we looking on number 5?
Good afternoon, Chair.
Good afternoon. Oh, see, so Mr. Balduc, you're online and you're not Ms. Henderson, so we're going to need your name, please.
Sorry, I'm the owner. My agent had told me just to sit at the table when, so I'm just following his instructions. Do you want me to go back?
No, you go ahead and you just stay there. I just wanted to make sure that we know who we're looking at.
Okay.
It certainly wasn't on my list, so don't.
My name is John Bilecki.
All right, thank you so much. All right, then, so on this, Mr. Balduc, I think we want a full presentation from you on this. There's a lot of questions.
Absolutely.
So go ahead and the floor is yours.
Thank you. If I could have the coordinator pull up my slides, please. Thank you. As you're aware, the application's at 204 Ste Monique Street. Next slide, please. To situate the site, it's located within the Vanier community at the southwest corner, or I guess rather the eastern corner, let's call it, of the intersections of Ste Cecile Street and Ste Monique Street. You'll note that the property is approximately 80 meters north of Martier Avenue, which is identified as a minor corridor. And then just off the screen to the northwest, I suppose, would be Beechwood Avenue, which is about 340 meters away, just to situate yourself within the city. If we zoom in on the site, next slide, please. I chose this aerial image from 2019 just because it happens to be a little more clearer, and I think it illustrates the picture. So we have a frontage of about 15.24 meters on Ste Monique, 24.38 meters on Ste Cecile, and the whole site itself is about 371 square meters. I think this image is important because it shows that the building, the existing building, which we're looking to convert and increase the number of dwelling units, is situated basically in the back corner of the lot, which has significantly limited our options in terms of addressing some of these variances. Next slide, please. I'll discuss a little bit of the project history, although FO10 was brought in a little bit later in the process. So if there's any building specific questions, that's why I've asked the owner, Mr. Bilecki, here to answer some of those questions. But briefly, to speak to it, the site is mostly peat moss, or it's really peaty soils, I should say. And as a result of that, when Mr. Bilecki acquired the property, it was identified that there was some significant structural damage to the basement and to the foundation. And so the renovations, I think as far back as 2022, started being identified, and basically there was a plan of action to retrofit the building and what would need to be required, and essentially it just kept spiraling into something else and something else and something else. So whereas some developers would at some point choose to stop and just tear it down and build something new. In this case, Mr. Bilecki is looking to revitalize the building. He thinks there's a lot of value in working with the existing building, the existing condition, as it relates to its neighbors and the surrounding character of the community. And so the efforts were made to reinforce that foundation and basically complete a lot of additional works and costs to bring the structure up to a better standard of living. Next slide, please. So I'll touch on the site plan. The variances have been identified. We've gone through the staff report and we understand that staff have identified some concerns with one of them, but to speak briefly to them, first one is the increased density. This is existing a 5-unit building, although it hasn't been occupied for some time now, a few years, due to the aforementioned extensive work being done on the building. But as of right, it would be permitted in an 8-unit building, and we're asking for an increase to 10. I'll touch on that a little bit more in a minute. The reduced yard setbacks, again, the building is not actually moving. It's the same foundation, it's the same structure. It's just that as a result of moving the entrances to the south side of the property onto Saint Cecile, there is a one provision under section 144, which makes that the front lot line. And therefore, a lot of our other setbacks are essentially adjusted accordingly. Perhaps it could have been argued that it's legal nonconforming, but due to the shifting of the lot line, we felt it would just be better to bring it here and seek relief. So again, the building is not moving at all. Any of the triggered setback reductions related to the building itself is simply as a matter of the definition of your front lot line. That ergo, variance number 3 that you can see there is the reduced rear yard soft landscape area. We're not able to increase the size of our rear yard. In fact, it is generally soft landscaped. The issue is that it doesn't meet the minimum of 50 square meters just because of the sheer size of it. It's about 39 square meters. So not much we can really do on that front. And then the fourth one is the reduced front yard setback for the accessory structure that's related to the waste collection enclosure. And I'll speak to that a little bit more in a minute. Next slide, please. Just going through some of the floor plans. It's not a 3-story structure, 2.5, let's call it. There's a basement level and then 2 floors above. What it's important to note is that if we did go through the R4 UA zoning, if we decided to demolish this building and do something new, we could add another story given the maximum building height. So we are looking to maximize the building under adaptive reuse of the existing structure. We're not adding any height. We're not encroaching into any of the existing yards. Next slide, please. And just the elevations that show it's generally the same structure. The main changes you'll see on the outside are, as noted in the top, the new stairwells to access the hallways for the upper floor units, as well as the 2 new doors in the let's call it the bottom right of the top left image there. You'll note that those are 2 entrances to the basement units. Those are in the location of the former garage, which is actually proposed to be removed. So the driveway, the garage, and a lot of that front yard hard landscaping for, so I guess hardscape for parking, all of that has been removed in favor of access ways, a couple of the accessory structure that I mentioned, bike parking, and the rest is all being converted to soft landscaping. Next slide, please. So the top right image shows the previous condition of the building. Again, the owner acquired it, I believe, circa 2022. At the time, it was in a state of disrepair, and essentially the owner has looked to retain the existing structure but significantly upgrade it. And so we're going from a total of 5 units to 10. The majority of them are studio units. However, we did want to ensure that the project included at least 1 large-sized dwelling, 1 3-bedroom unit. And that is included. It's about 1,250 square feet. So it's quite considerable and ensures that there's a diversity of dwelling units both within the building and the area. I recognize that this is not the target of 50% that is being sought in the low-rise areas under the official plan. However, we did note that just further south on the minor corridor, for example, that minimum would be 5%. So you could have a 20-unit building with 1 unit. So 10% in our mind is quite fair. And it's, again, not just a 850 square foot, larger 2-bedroom unit. It's a dedicated 3-bedroom, 1,200 square foot unit capable of accommodating a family. Next slide, please. Speaking specifically to the garbage enclosure, because that was noted in the staff report as one of the comments, what we've decided to do in this case is locate the accessory structure closer to the corner. Typically, we would try to tuck it in somewhere. We'd try to put it in the rear yard. We'd try to put it in maybe a side yard if we have to. As you can understand from seeing the site plan, we don't have much of a rear yard. We don't have much of a side yard. So the alternatives were either we include the garbage enclosure within the building. That was a challenge because it would remove one of the units and we'd be down to 9. And as a result of the extensive costs of upgrading this building, we really are targeting a 10-unit building. So Pivoting from that, looking at the garbage enclosure, we said, how do we make sure that it fits within the context of the area, recognizing that we're working from what's currently not a great condition, or what previously was not a great condition. So on the right, you can see that the previous method of garbage collection was just a bunch of bins in the parking lot. That parking lot's being removed, and so the garbage enclosure is being proposed generally in the same location, but we've decided to surround it with landscaping. And a lot of that landscaping is already built. So you'll note on the top left image, essentially all of the green space that's being included, but specifically a giant landscaped area of about 73 square meters, which is a raised bed planter with a number of shrubs and other plants. That continues between the building and the garbage enclosure to fully surround it. And then, of course, at the front, we're also proposing a new tree as part of the tree compensation that we worked out with the forestry department for the removal of the previous tree that had caused the damage to the foundation. So 3 new trees replacing 1 and strategically locating it along with other landscaping to mask the waste collection building. That accessory structure is designed to be made of wood, the same wood that you'll see as part of the planting boxes, as part of the staircases that lead to the buildings, creating a cohesive materiality set within a nice amount of green space. Next slide, please. These are some of the other improvements. I won't go into extensive detail, but I think on the left side, you can see the landscape improvements, especially on the bottom left. Right behind that tree that you can see on the, call it the left side, but bottom right, right behind that tree plant, you can see that's roughly to project the area where the waste enclosure would be located. The exterior cladding has also been updated. The building's been fully upgraded to accommodate this, this new density and quality of life for the tenants. Next slide, please. On the left is an image from September 2024. Showing that planter box that was previously described. The waste collection enclosure would be located roughly where the front of that box truck is located. And again, you would have new landscaping surrounding it, as well as new street trees to help provide for visual screening. The image on the right shows that some of those additional wooden elements, you can see there's sort of a benched area. Those were requested to be removed from the city. The owner had sought to add some structures in this area for amenity space, for improvements to the green space, but those were asked to be removed. So now we're left with the staircase, the planting box, and then the sheltered area on the far right, which provides access to the 2 bottom level units that are replacing the garage and the basement. Next slide, please. I'll touch briefly on the 4 tests. I would note that the site is near frequent transit. Beechwood Avenue is identified as a transit priority corridor. We're approximately 350 meters away, which is considered walking distance. The project features 0 parking. It's not permitted for a lot that's smaller than 450 square meters. And I would note that the official plan encourages 0 parking. So we've removed that and replaced it with green space, which is a net positive. The official plan encourages residential growth within walking distance of main streets. As I mentioned, that would be Beechwood. We also benefit from being in proximity to Marier, which is just a little bit further south, but that's a corridor, or minor corridor rather. We're introducing 1 new large dwelling unit, whereas previously we had none. There were a couple smaller 2-bedroom units, but we did not have any 3-bedroom or large-sized dwelling units previously. So that's a net increase. The official plan also speaks to low-rise buildings integrating architecturally, including areas for soft landscaping and entrances at grade. By utilizing the existing building within the Vanier community, we're matching the existing community character, but still intensifying within the existing envelope instead of pulling it out and building taller. That was a strategic advantage in this case. If we were to move the building closer, we'd be losing green space between the building and the street. If we were to go for new construction, we'd be maximizing the building height, which would be a further impact on the community despite it being permitted. And in addition to that, taking down the existing structure would generate a significant amount of construction waste, which is something that we're specifically trying to avoid through the adaptive reuse of existing structures. Next slide, please. Speaking to the zoning bylaw, it's a modest increase in the permitted density from 8 units to 10 units while utilizing the existing envelope. And again, introducing a 3-bedroom unit, whereas previously that was not the case. The setbacks are only triggered by shifting the front door to Ste Monique, or sorry, to Saint Cecile. Apologies for the error on the slide. The accessory structure is located in a front yard, but we can't locate it in a rear yard and we can't locate it in a side yard. Even if it was right up against the building, it's still closer to the street than the actual building itself, which means that in any scenario, we'd be triggering a variance for an accessory building on the property. So by virtue of the building being located where it is, any accessory building, whether it's for waste collection, amenity space, bike parking, anything would trigger a variance. And further, we note that the parking and the garage was removed in favor of more additional units and a significant increase to the landscaping on the St. Cecilia side. Next slide, please. So on the topic of the variances being minor in nature, we would note again that the setbacks are related to the existing condition. The density is a modest increase over what's already permitted and reflects the owner's efforts to retain the existing building envelope, including the unexpected costs involved in basically rebuilding the whole thing with the foundation. The new structure is strategically located away from the neighbors. That was one thing we factored in as well, is if we tucked it in sort of the east side of this plan, it's right next to someone else. And if we tucked it into the north side, not only would the tenants have to walk much longer around the building, which means increasing the amount of hardscape, it would be located closer to the neighbor to the north as well. So there's no great spot for it in this case, but we've tried to mitigate for that by, again, surrounding it with landscaping and making sure that the materiality matches the condition of the other improvements, including the landscaping and the wooden stairs. And as a result of this, we believe there's no undue adverse impacts anticipated. Next slide, please. I've touched on this before, but again, it's the adaptive reuse of the existing building, which minimizes construction waste, which makes for a more sustainable project. We're very proud of that. Typically, a client will come to us, ask us to take it down and put up something new. In this case, they're looking to work within the character of the area. You'll note in this image, for example, the two apartment buildings behind us have a very similar shape, a very similar character, and we're maintaining that, which is reflective of the architecture of Vanier, a Francophone community. The waste collection enclosure is, again, I recognize it's not ideal, but it does replace a previous condition, which was even worse, which was just garbage bits in a parking lot. And overall, the building, landscaping, and function of the site is significantly improved. Finally, on the last step, I just wanted to touch a little bit on the public consultation. I recognize I'm probably over my time, but thank you. I would note that we did reach out, the owner, John, sitting before you, did reach out to the immediate neighbors. I believe maybe there's a neighbor who's here to speak to it, or at least submitted a letter, Mr. Bolton. I would also note that we had a meeting with Mr. Greenshields from the Community Association. It was a very productive meeting. He did note there was concerns, and you heard it on a previous application, that's there's been a significant number of increase of applications going from 8 to 10 units. And if 8 was the limit, why are we all of a sudden jumping to 10? That being said, in discussing with Mr. Greenshields, he understands that there was a lot of complexities, a lot of additional costs involved in this project, and that essentially 10 units seems like a fair compromise when it comes to, I don't want to paraphrase, but he did provide a letter. It seems like a fair compromise given the challenges associated with the adaptive reuse of an existing building in a community rather than tearing it down and doing something new. So that's a little over. I apologize for going very quickly through it. I'm open to your questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bolduc. We actually prefer, especially on a complex development like this, to hear from you to the extent that you need to provide that information. So never apologize for that. We're happy to hear from you. I have just one question then for Mr. Blakey. Is that your name? When you bought the property, if I understood Mr. Bolduc's presentation, that property had already been vacant for 2 years when you picked it up. Is that correct?
No, that's not correct. I had purchased it vacant, and the building permit, the application, and the timeline, it took quite a while.
I'm just asking, when you bought it,
yes,
when you bought that property, you said that the unit, the triplex, I guess, or whatever it was at the time, was vacant, correct?
Yes.
Can you tell me how long it had been vacant before you purchased it?
Let me, October 1st, 2020, I had acquired the property, and October 30th, 2020, the building was vacated.
So there were people in the building at the time of purchase, is that correct?
Yes, and the people in the building and the owner and myself had a discussion regarding the transaction, and it was agreed to that upon my purchase, they would be moving to other accommodations.
All right, thank you, because I thought I'd heard that it had been vacated for 5 years, and it sounds like maybe a little bit less than that, but Mr. Bolduc, I see that you may want to answer that question.
I'm just looking to clarify my comment. It was simply that the building has been vacant for some time due to the time that it has taken to undertake these extensive renovations. When you're redoing the foundation, nobody can live there. So it's
Right, sorry. Sorry,
Thank
I
you.
thought it was 5 years for whatever reason. I was trying to get some sense of what it is that your client had acquired essentially at the time. Okay, I have lots of questions, but I'm going to open it up to the rest of the panel because I know they do too. So Ms. Member Yuka, sorry, go ahead, please.
Thank you. So my question is just to clarify, you mentioned a few times, I guess it would probably be to Monsieur Le Bolduc. You'd mentioned, you're going for 10. If you went to 9, you didn't use the word financial viability, but I understood from your comments that was the rationale for why you wanted 10 is that 9 wouldn't seem to work. Can you just clarify what your comments were on that specific spot?
That's correct. We are targeting a 10-unit building based on the extensive renovations that were required. That's at the end of the day, you have to pencil it out. And that's how it pencils out in this situation. So we're requesting 10. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Member Coakley.
So I follow up on that to a certain extent. It's quite clear from what you've said and quite clear from the pictures you've presented to us that an incredible amount of work has already been done on the building. Are you presenting us today with a fait accompli and daring us to deny the variance? Quite frankly, that's what it seems to me, that you've done all the work, you've done everything, and now you're coming to us and saying, if you don't approve, well, obviously you'll go to the land tribunal. What still remains to be done?
Happy to answer that through you, Madam Chair. That's not the intent here today. FOTEN was brought in later in the process. There was a building permit that was applied for in order to begin the construction. Once it was identified that the foundation had issues, as you can see, the work has essentially multiplied. FOTEN was brought in earlier this year to steward the application when it was identified at the building permit stage that 10 units was not permitted and that the maximum was 8. And so when FOTEN was brought onto the project, we looked at some of the work that was already done. We applauded Mr. Bilecki for starting from a position of wanting to retain the existing structure, and we evaluated our position from there. So a lot of the work has been completed. There's still some work that remains, and Mr. Bilecki can perhaps provide some more detail on that. As you saw from the site photo that we provided fairly recently, there's still some work that remains, especially on the exterior of the building, but a lot of the interior improvements have been done. It's certainly not a fait accompli, especially given the fact that we need to come seek this variance. But in this case, we do support the variance, and we would hope that the committee is able to see that the owner here is trying to retain the existing structure and make for a much better living space for the tenants.
So were we to deny variance 1, were you to go to the land tribunal and they also deny variance 1, what's plan B?
We would have a non-compliant building, and we would be in a position where we're required to comply. So if that were to require renovations to the interior of the building in order to bring this to an 8-unit building, that may be the case. That would be one scenario. But as I said earlier, that's not possible given the financial constraints of the project at this stage. So when FOTEN was brought on board, we were asked to evaluate, is 10 units appropriate from a planning perspective? And looking at it, and given its proximity to public transit, given that it is the adaptive reuse of a building, we're protecting for front yard landscaping and making those improvements. We do believe that 10 units is appropriate in an area that's designated for growth.
Any follow-on questions, Member Coakley?
Not at this time, thanks, Madam Chair.
All right, Member Blatherwick.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd just like to state to Mr. Bolduc that as far as I understand, the economics of land development is not a planning principle and never will be one. Anyway, what we're looking at here is 10 units where you're allowed 8. What I'd like to know is when the internal renovations were planned, I'm assuming that a building permit was applied for. And was that building permit, the application made for 8 units?
Through you, Madam Chair, I can speak briefly on this, but I might turn to Mr. Bilecki afterwards. The zoning plans examiner report that we received had identified that the permit application was for 10 units. And it was identified that a variance would be required, which is when FOTEN was contacted to see if we could support the application. So that's my understanding. I can't speak to any of the previous building permits that may have been applied for.
All right, I'll ask the owner then. When you decided to renovate the interior of the structure, you had to get a building permit. How many units were you going to put in the building?
Before I answer, I just want to apologize to all of you because it seems that we're leaning towards something that's pointing towards me being offsides with this project. So I'm going to provide context to nuance. The project started with 2 permits. It started with a structural permit to address the basement and a subsequent permit for a 6-unit, which was effectively a bedroom bunker. I wasn't fond of it, nor were the lenders. My architect had communicated to me during the construction under the 6-unit permit that we would be, I'm not technical, R4 equates to 10 units, and that legislation was in the pipeline to pass. And on the strength of my architect advising us on what was happening, the floor plan, the floor plate for the 6 units, the bedroom bunker concept was very easy to adapt to 10. Every bedroom had an ensuite bathroom. So although I know optically it may look like I was possibly doing something nefarious here, that wasn't my, I wasn't trying to be offsides or do something tricky, as it seems that that's what's being implied here. And that's my answer. I was following the lead of the architect on theoretical legislation that was going to be in the pipeline. From the 6-unit permit, we applied for a 8-unit permit. And what was triggered was the talk of minor variance because we are R4 UA, and R4 UA followed under the 8-unit trigger. That's my answer.
So you applied for a 6-unit renovation, and then you applied and received approval for an 8-unit renovation, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
However, the one thing you have to contextualize here is the amount of bedrooms and the framing and the ensuite bathrooms. So everything was in place in order to adapt towards a legal, designated legal 10-unit building.
No, I'm sorry, but legal 10-unit building is not available in that zoning. It's 8.
My apologies.
So
I mean
just to be clear, you applied for 6, and then on the advice of your architect, you went for 8 and got approval, correct?
Yes.
And you built 10. Bottom line.
No.
Well,
okay. The answer is
your permit to allow the extra 2 units.
Sir, I'm just trying to explain to you that the infrastructure for you have to look at the nuance regarding the amount of rooms, bedrooms, bathrooms. To answer you, yes, you're correct in what you're saying. I'm just trying to provide some context here. That's all.
Yeah.
In terms of how we got to 10.
Unfortunately, we have to look at the zoning bylaw. Thank you, Madam Chair.
All right, thank you. Any other questions from the panel? Well, I've got a couple. So, one of the things that we talk a lot about when we see applications to increase units beyond the zoning limits is, and it's something that even the planning and development department has looked to achieve, and that's the missing middle, right? So when I looked at what you were offering in terms of the unit mix, previously, I was surprised to see that you dropped all 2-bedroom, which would allowed you know, a young couple with a baby to maybe move into your building you've got 8 studios is what so 1 3-bedroom. Okay, that's good. 8 studios and 1 bedroom. So I'm wondering, like, can you tell me who you think you're going to be marketing to on this?
I think we've exceeded 55% of Ottawa's population being under the age of 40. I'm 36 years old. I've been in this business since I was 18, so I have a bit of a leap in comparison to people my age, my peers. The business case here, in terms of 3-bedroom products, even 2-bedroom products, by default, when you create these ads for these rentals, by default, you always have students knocking on your doors. I'm not a person that advocates for student housing, and that's not what this product is for. But I'm just trying to stress to you that the data doesn't really correlate with these talking points that you just made, which sound very emotional and nice, but factually, and if you're just focusing on hard data, the average person that's going to be emailing me to inquire will be under the age of 30. They're not going to have a car. I didn't lose sleep over the parking. They're, you know, and I'm not trying to be condescending here. I'm just, what's disheartening about this is I haven't seen one single 30-year-old challenge any of these projects. I've seen a lot of boomers. I've seen a particular class of people that vocalize their issues. I don't think if I brought a group of 30-year-olds into this room that they would be challenging what we're doing here. So I think we call this NIMBYism. And, you know, what I'm saying right now is obviously not productive to getting a green light from you folks, but I'm trying to stress to you that my generation, people younger than me, would be very oppositional to your points right now. And you have to consider that the majority of the population in Ottawa, single, no kids. I have 4 cats. I'm the profile renter that you're speaking about. You know.
So, Mr. Billy, just, you know, on that though, I mean, I do have 3 kids that are under 40, so I do have not as much experience as you, obviously, but I do have some experience with that cohort. So, you did raise a point though that I'd just like to explore a little bit further. Can you tell me what kind of consultation you undertook with your neighbors when you decided to go to 10 units? It's something that tends to be, you know, increased height, increased densities. There tend to be hot topics in neighborhoods. So I'd just like to know how you approach that with your neighbors.
What was brought up a lot was the existing conditions prior to me taking the property on. In terms of conversations with the neighbors, one of them here, Mr. Bolton, was for the intensification of increasing the amount of units in the area, which by extension, more supply in the area would soften the demand. So supply and demand, you know, as a ratio, that's a lot of the rationale that was being communicated. From where I stand, again, I understand your reasoning to object to this, but the more supply we offer, the cheaper technically it should become for the end user being the renter.
Okay, so just want to understand, because the situation was, because you're improving on the existing situation, there really wasn't any public consultation undertaken, just yes or no?
When you say public, as in?
Talk to the neighbors. You showed them a plan, told them what you were going to do, got their thoughts. All right.
When the properties, again, I don't mean to be rude or condescending here, but it's in what scenario would somebody like myself purchase a building and then go have conversations with the neighbors, you wouldn't have that interaction until later dates. And I'm trying to tell you that the immediate neighbors that I have spoken to, including Mr. Bolton, who's here, they were for the intensification. That's my answer to you. I don't
Right,
know.
all I'm telling you is that one of the cornerstones of planning, especially grassroots planning, like Committee of Adjustment, Minor Variances and Consents, is consultation with the surrounding community. So just keep that in mind for future projects, because I will, if I'm here, I will be asking you about your consultation, because it is, I mean, we hear it from neighbors all the time. It's that nobody came to us, nobody provided anything. And that's like, it's hard for this committee to hear an application knowing that there has been no attempt to actually broker any kind of compromise. Where we've seen that there's an effort, then it's easier to say, okay, what's the planning result for this? How's the impact working for everybody? Well, you have a better scenario in those cases, generally speaking. Not picking on this one in any way, just saying that that's a good process to follow often. All right, so I don't think I had any other questions. Anybody else? Oh, so Mr. Balduke, I see. I'm going to go, actually, Mr. Balduke, would you mind if I went to Ms. Lecuyer? We'll get her comments, and then maybe we can come back. It's probably all related. So go ahead, Member Lecuyer.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just curious, you mentioned about the needs and why you chose the unit count and the makeup that you did. You provided a lot of maybe talking points or whatever, but did you actually have any needs study that you consulted that told you that this particular community needs certain types of units? Is there any studies that were conducted or any data from CMHC or others?
I have to speak to that as a operator, as a landlord developer. So I do have my own internal mechanisms to synthesize the market data, and from that make decisions in the marketplace. To suggest that CMHC is the holy grail for all of the issues within the marketplace, I wouldn't. Not suggesting you're saying that, but it doesn't stop at CMHC. There's other very granular data points that I have to take a look at in order to make these decisions.
Just asking what data points those were, if there was certain that you did follow or not, or are they just, because again, if you're saying I consulted the Ottawa real estate or like
the answer is I have to the answer is simply I have to synthesize. The answer is, I mean, I have to synthesize a lot of data myself. I'm not going to hire a third party to tell me what I'm supposed to be doing. I have to synthesize what the market is doing. That's what any operator in a marketplace has to do. Yes, will I rely on CMHC data? Of course, but I have to objectively look at different data points and come to a conclusion. That's my answer. In terms of the, unless the members here have a deep experience posting rental ads and understand what it's like at this moment, I don't think it would be fair to cancel out my experience here as an operator. So unless you're getting a different experience when you post ads, I can just tell you and assure you that when you post these rental ads, you're not getting an abundance of families, you're not getting an abundance of couples, you're getting single people.
So Mr. Blake, I just want to give you some assurance that we understand that you have that experience, that lived experience, which is important. I mean, it's the same thing as any landowner coming to us and giving us their lived experience in terms of whether something's appropriate or not. We give that consideration because we know that that's their lived experience. And so I just want to give you some assurance that I think I'm not going to put words in the member's mouth, but I think she was just asking whether or not you did use tools or not. If you relied on your own experience, that's perfectly valid as well. So don't feel the need to defend that. I think it's worthwhile, and you know, something that the committee will definitely take into consideration. So don't worry about that. Okay, I know Member Coakley here has a question, so go ahead.
Well, it's a follow-up on that, to be perfectly honest. Sir, if you were here before us, before you had started construction and were seeking approval to get the variance before you had started construction, you would have convinced me. My problem is your construction is already done. You've clearly demonstrated that you're not someone who is completely inexperienced in this world. So my concern is whether you were following your architect's recommendation, who ought to have known better. Somebody ought to have known better before that interior construction started to make 10 units out of what was only legally allowed to be 8 units. And you're putting us on the spot now to either, oh, well, yeah, who cares? Doesn't matter. Or we put a major roadblock in your way. That's my problem that I'm wrestling with here and now. I'm not sure about my colleagues, but, you know, quite frankly, the corner side, you won me over on those long ago. What you said just in the last few minutes, if you were coming here on an application the way the applications are supposed to be presented to this committee, I'd give it to you. But I've got this problem that someone, and I don't want to point fingers because I don't know who did it, but somebody went ahead and did something they probably knew they shouldn't have done. And that's what I'm struggling with.
All right, any other questions by the panel before we go to Mr. Bolduc?
May I respond, Chair, to Mr. Coakley, just 30 seconds?
All right, go ahead.
Mr. Coakley, I understand the optics, the sequence of events. I understand the optics, and I'm not in a position to tell you you're wrong. I understand the optics, the sequence of events that led to this. Again, I have a 20% construction mortgage. There's lots of money involved. I would not. I don't have a lot of motive to play games with the city or with decision makers at your level. Sometimes there's no conspiracy. Sometimes it's just incompetence. And the incompetence can be on my side and my architect's side, but I would just like to push back gently. I would prefer that, you know, it's not framed here as we being myself, we're trying to play a game and, you know, get a quick one on you where I come to this hearing and you have to give me my 10 units. The circumstances of everything here, it's complicated. And as you know, there's a lot of nuance to everything. I just want to rest assured this wasn't intentional in terms of how we got here, but when the architect had mentioned the legislation for the 10 units and the existing conditions of what we had with the 8-unit layout, again, do I think I'm hurting the marketplace? No. Do renters think I'm hurting the marketplace, which is part of the equation, and I don't think it's correctly balanced here? No. And that's what I would look at. It's not just neighbors, the renters in the marketplace. Again, I don't think a single 30-year-old who's trying to find a place at this moment would agree with you that we should be decreasing the unit count. I understand the rule of law is in place and I respect it, but we are in a emergency of a situation, and I think you folks might not be sensitive to what it's like to rent right now because you're not in our shoes, and I think that needs to be considered in your decision making.
All right, thank you. And I think we're going to rest on that whole line, if it's all right with the panel members. Mr. Bolduc, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. I've got a number of things I'd like to respond to if that works. And I'm trying to figure out the best order of events. But on the 10-unit consideration, I think just to clarify on that, as you know, there were changes that were made so that 10 units is permitted without site plan control. A lot of people in the industry might have misinterpreted that. So I believe that might have been what came through the architect saying you can, oh, all of a sudden you can do 10. Well, that's not the case. Obviously, the variance is still required. As I said, FO10 came in rather late in the process. And it seems like that misinformation was already provided. And thus the pivot to a 10 unit building, which is why the zoning compliance officer flagged it, which is why FO10 was contacted. On that note, I just want to come back to a previous comment that was made that, you know, the financing or the costs for project are not necessarily grounds for planning. I completely agree. That's correct. What I'm saying is that when the project was brought to us and it was, we need 10 units because of reasons X, Y, Z, the financing, the building has to look like this. From a planning perspective, can you support it? And FO10 from an independent position looked at it and we said, well, it's a lot of smaller units, but we need a 3-bedroom unit. Okay, great. That's a positive. How close are we to transit? Okay, that's great. These people aren't going to use cars. We can get rid of the parking. Who's likely to live here? It's probably a younger demographic, maybe not need as much space. I've lived in studio units before. And as long as they're within proximity to both transit on Marillier and on transit priority corridor up on Beechwood, they're also not that far from Montreal itself. Okay, a smaller units with a larger unit count is defensible. So it's not necessarily that we came in here to say that we need 10 units on a planning merit. We came at this from an independent position saying, can you defend a 10-unit building here? And we said yes. And on that note, I would go back to the staff report and would note that staff did not have concerns with the density. I would note that despite the community association typically having concerns with the increase from 8 to 10 units, in this case, they don't. And I think that shows a lot of the work that we did from a public consultation perspective. Mr. Bilecki here did go knock on doors for the immediate neighbors, did discuss with them. And as you heard, the comments that we got back were essentially, oh, thank God you're cleaning that up, because the previous building did have quite a few issues. You notice the waste collection was just bins at the front. It was I don't want to say a sight for sore eyes in the community, but it was a bit of a challenging building. And Mr. Bilecki's put a lot of effort and a lot of time and money into extensively landscaping the property and bringing something that the community in that corner can really shine. So on that note, I would note that, again, staff didn't have a problem with the increase in density. The community association, despite generally having concerns with the increase from 8 units to 10 units as a result of that 8-unit limit under the zoning, but 10 units as for site plan, they agree that in this case it makes sense. And again, I don't want to put words in Mr. Greenshield's mouth, but there is a written letter in support. So I understand the concerns over the density increase. But I would note in this case that I think it's been well done. I do understand Mr. Coakley's comments about coming here after the fact. That's unfortunate. I think it's a lesson learned that you really can't, you really need to be careful in what you submit for your permits and what gets flagged and when you end up here, because even just those optics change the discussion. And that's really unfortunate. I think I just want to echo that FO10 came in to try to help Mr. Beckley get this over the finish line. And demonstrate that there is an overall improvement to the project and that the density is defendable given the official plan goals for density and proximity to transit, and providing a diversity of dwelling units both within the area and within buildings themselves. So
All right,
it's
thank you, Mr. Bolduc.
thank you.
Yeah, I'm not going to respond to everything that you just said, but I got to tell you, I'm going to have to disagree with an awful lot of what you just said. I think the first thing and the most important thing for me is I don't think in any way did I hear that there was public consultation with the neighbors for 10 units. I think there might have been consultation with the units about improving in the building, but I don't believe anybody was shown a plan that said, here's 10 units that I'm proposing and here's how I'm going to do it. I don't believe that happened. That's not what we heard from the owner. What the committee is finding more and more is that it's great that the city has policies that they want to increase densities. They have caps. They're working towards increasing those caps. That's great. Right now, we have a council-approved zoning bylaw that tells us here's what council's express interest is in this area, and here's the cap. So that's what this committee has to deal with. I'd also like to say that because we have now issues where we've got single sites where there's this increase in units, there comes a lot of additional planning issues, as you know. So the applications are becoming increasingly complex. And what we want to see as a committee is that I know there's developers out there that may not have been, subdividers or big, large site planning, but our expectation is that there has been due diligence done in keeping with proper planning processes. And I think that's what we're trying to say is, we want to help you. We want to increase intensification. We don't want to get in anybody's way, but we want to hear that it's been done correctly. It's been done in keeping with the process. So that's really, I think, at the end of the day, what some of these questions from the committee is trying to get at is, where does that leave us if the processes haven't been appropriately followed? So with that then, if nobody has, I think we can go to the public portion of this. I'd like to hear from people who are directly affected by the application. So if there's no other questions from panel members or no further comments from you, Mr. Bolduc, or you, Mr. Blakey, I'd like to call on our first speaker.
Chair Tremblay, may I, again, respectfully, it's intellectually dishonest to say that I did not notify the public. As a 6-unit product, we had 6 2-bedroom units. That accounts to 12 beds. You have to focus on the amount of beds that the product, when I say product, the building is going to the output of bedrooms. I have not increased the amount of bedrooms that will be available in the building. It's still 12. So I respectfully disagree with you to frame it that way. I did, and the concern from neighbors is how many bedrooms will exist in this place? 12. That was 3 years ago. That's the same number today. So I would just gently push back here that it's intellectually dishonest to suggest that I did not consult neighbors or the public the way you framed it. I can't accept that. Again, I don't have a lot of incentive or motive to play games with the City of Ottawa or this governing body here. Were there mistakes? Evidently there were. Just point at incompetence. I wasn't trying to play any game or evade. And I feel that you and your peers here are framing this application as if that was the case. Again, this is beginning to be disheartening. Just I understand you have a mandate here, and you have to ensure all sides of the equation are heard and accounted for, but this is leaning in the wrong direction based on what I'm interpreting here. Thank you.
So thank you, Mr. Blakey. And just for the record, there is a large difference between a bedroom count and a household count. They're not the same thing under any planning measure that I've ever experienced. So I'm not going to have that debate with you, but have that debate with Mr. Bolduc maybe at some point. Have a beer with Mr. Bolduc and have that debate about household versus bedrooms. So I'll leave that at that. I am going to go to the public portion of this, and all I've got is one right now that's on my list, which is Mr. Bolton, I believe. So come on down.
Hello, thanks very much. I'm very happy to be here. I mean, on behalf of an owner builder, he must feel very overwhelmed in front of this great big audience here. And I, as a similar small builder renovator, I felt I had to be here as well. My name is Bruce Bolton. I own the 4-unit right abutting his unit. I've owned it for 41 years. And I've owned and renovated about 6 properties in Ottawa and Vanier and helped my father-in-law with a dozen others in the 80s, 90s, and aughties. I'm getting older now, so I'm slowing down. But I'm here to support Mr. Bilecki in his efforts to take a really rundown building. And since '84, I think when I first talked to the builder, Mr. Aboud, in '84, I really never saw him in the next 20 years or whatever, or any owner after that time. I'm sure he collected the rent, but I never saw him or very few other people actually working and maintaining the building. So when I say it was long neglected, it's very true. And for a period of time, it was empty for a while, and me and the neighbors, including Alfredo Verdesco and the others, were worried that it would be vandalized and set alight. And Vanier is no stranger to mysterious fires. I think a year or two ago, there were about 4 mysterious fires in Vanier, and I had personal experience. I had a 4-unit over in Carillon. I had a mental health care patient who liked to set fires, and she set fire to a garbage container too. And that was very sad. We are very happy to see John go in and do all that work, a tremendous amount of work. And he has spent an absolute fortune. And he represents small owners and renovators in Ottawa. About 30% of the rental accommodation are owned by small mom and pop operations who only, have 1 or 2 properties. Big companies like Brigel and Astley would come in and simply demolish the building. Very few people, other than John and others, would go into an older building and fix it up. And the regulatory burden today is much higher than it was in the 80s and 90s and 100 in the aughties. Oftentimes you could go in and 90% of the work that you would want to do, you didn't need a permit for. You could change the windows. You could put on you could do flooring, put in new toilets, do all that sort of basic stuff without changing the outline of the house at all. And you wouldn't need a permit for most things. Electricity, a new roof, that sort of thing. You might need a work permit. So I just want to focus on 3 items. The first one is additional development charges. As John has said, he spent a small fortune doing a lot of renovations. And then recently I hear that the city was going to assess him an additional fee of $100,000 for permission to create these 5 new units. He's already spent a small fortune, and this is very small, a very difficult thing for a small builder to do. And you may wonder why a lot of developers aren't building rentals or even restoring our old buildings. It's not a very popular thing to do because it is very, very difficult. A lot of these old buildings, nothing is square, nothing is easy. It takes you twice as long to do a repair to an older building than a new building because of differences over the time. So my suggestion to this group is, given the horrendous costs that he has occurred over this period of time, why not waive this extra, in my view, exorbitant fee of $100,000? Is it really necessary? I think you should be giving breaks to young developers here and grants and other financial assistance if you truly want more housing in the city of Ottawa. It is tremendously in demand. And, last 1-bedroom I had for rent, I had 200 inquiries. It's absolutely horrendous out there. People seeking reasonable, reasonable structures, a reasonable rent. Another concern that I had with the city was the city asked John to build all sorts of wooden structures in front of his building. They wanted a storage space for garbage. They wanted a bicycle enclosure. They wanted other things that looked like flower boxes. And it resulted in a profusion of wooden structures right against 2 exits of the building. As a former fire warden at another office building, we wouldn't allow such flammable structures right up against the 2 exits of that particular building. It would appear to be a fire hazard. In my letter of April 26 to the committee, I suggested that that might be a problem. Then a week later, around April the 30th, I went by and I discovered the crew was dismantling all of these wooden structures. Well, isn't that remarkable? Did they take my advice? I'm not sure, but I'm glad that those wooden structures are gone because it appeared to be a hazard to me. Another concern, and we only have, how many minutes do I have?
You have like literally 1 more
None.
minute.
Okay, well, forget
Give you a minute to
about
wrap up here.
Okay, I will forget about the parking issue. Wrap up, well, too bad I can't get to the parking issue because 2 days ago I received another option from the city saying that there's a 41-unit building going to be built on Saint Cecile about 100 feet away 41 units to replace 3 individual houses. And of these 41 apartments, there will be no parking there either at 73, 79, and 83 St. Cecile Street. This is going to cause a bit of a hazard with illegal parking, people parking here, there, on my lot, on other people's lots. That could be a concern, is parking. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Any questions for our speaker? No? All right, thank you for your time today. We always appreciate people coming down. Is there anyone else in the audience or online who would like to speak to this application? All right, I'm not seeing any. So with that, there's, as you know, always a couple of minutes of recap, Mr. Belduc, Mr. Blakey. So don't know who wants to take the lead on that, but you can go ahead.
I think I'd like to take the lead, Chair, if that's okay. I appreciate the comments from the committee today. I think if we had been brought into the project from the very beginning, we may have been able to steer this in a bit of a different direction. Like I said, unfortunately, we were only retained earlier this year once a lot of the construction was complete and once the notice of violation was circulated. That being said, I think a lot of the improvements, and that's why I spent some time going through them, are quite notable. And as you've seen from one of the neighbors, and as well from the letter from the community association, the improvements to the building and the landscaping and the exterior of the building are very much appreciated. The increase in density, again, I would just note, was not an issue in the staff report. There have been other projects that have been approved up to 10 units as we look to increase our density in proximity to transit. I just once again like to come back to the fact that I understand that perhaps the public consultation in your mind was not satisfactory, but I would note that it was completed. John did go knock on doors, and we did manage to have a very good discussion. I think we talked for about 45 minutes with the community association about not only this project, but a lot of the other development pressures facing Vanier. And through that conversation, again, it was acknowledged that the community understands that new construction is complicated, but the conversion of an existing building to accommodate more units is also quite complex. So I suppose I'd just like to end on the note that if we could have done things differently, we certainly would have. That being said, we are at this committee to explain the situation quite openly and honestly, to review it from a planning perspective, and to note that we do support the variances as proposed. And we do believe staff support the majority of the variances as well. And we thank you for your time.
All right, thank you, Mr. Belduc, and I do appreciate some of the planning evidence that you provided. I think that you did a good job highlighting some of those real benefits that are associated with the proposal. So thank you for that. We do appreciate it. With that, I think I'm going to go out on a limb, but I think we're reserving on this one. All right, so what that means is we're going to chat further about a lot of what we talked about today. There was a lot of discussion, so more to think about. And you'll get the written decision in due course and within the 10 days. So thank you for your time today. We appreciate it. All right, so that's number 5. We've got 2 left, which are applications 3 and 7. I believe we have member Keklikan who needs to recuse himself, and we're at 3:15. I also have an obligation which I have to get to. So I'm going to ask member Blatherwick to step in if he could as chair for the remaining 2 items. And then I'll speak with you, Mr. Garrett, about how we deal with the reservations and my votes. Okay. All right. Well, thank you, everyone. And over to you.
Happy renovations, Madam Chair. All right. We are down to the last 2 applications on our agenda today. Item 3, 280, 282, 284 Somerset Street East and 105 Sweetland Avenue. An application to subdivide a property into 4 lots for 4 10-unit apartment buildings with reduced interior yard and soft landscaped areas for 1 building. I believe Ms. Hill will be doing the presentation. Ms. Hill, welcome. And our sound system still works.
All right.
Please proceed.
Yeah, could I have my slide deck, please? Okay, so if you go to the second slide, I'll start by orienting you in the location. So this is in Sandy Hill. You can see Somerset Street crossing the bottom left edge of the slide. A community center, kind of center bottom of the slide. The stars indicate the subject property, which is contiguous, but it's a bit of a funny shape there. So it includes a couple of existing buildings on Sweetland Avenue, 3 buildings fronting onto Somerset, and a vacant lot that's fronting onto Russell. A little bit of context in that neighborhood. There's a mix of 2 and 3 story buildings. You can see as you just kind of cast your eye across that area, a mix of building sizes, but it's fairly granular. And the 3 buildings that are at the corner of Sweetland and Somerset are relatively new buildings, multi-unit buildings that are 3 stories. Across the street at the corner of Somerset and Russell, across the street from the subject property, there's a vacant commercial space. And then, of course, the University of Ottawa is along Sweetland to the right of the slide, so 5 blocks or so to the right. So lots of demand for housing in this area, and my client Groupe provide housing, quite a bit of housing in this neighborhood. All right, so the next slide, please. These are photographs of the subject site from the different sides. So you see the 2 houses on Sweetland, 2 buildings on Sweetland. Those are 2 5-unit buildings. They're older and they're, a little bit scrappy. At the bottom, you see the vacant property on Russell. And then on the right, you see the properties along Somerset. The Somerset properties are single-family homes. Next slide, please. So there you see a little bit more of the context and the scale of the neighborhood, that mix of 2 and 3 story buildings. Next slide, please. What we're proposing is the redevelopment of the property, the demolition of all 5 buildings, all 13 units, and replacing them with 4 buildings, a total of 40 units, so 4 10-unit buildings. When we first looked at this site, we looked at lots of different options, but we hit on this solution because it allows for 4 buildings that are almost identical to each other. And so it's a cost-effective, smart way to move ahead. It also allows for buildings that are of the same scale as the neighborhood context. So as opposed to 1 big building wrapping this corner, break it into 3 at this corner, which is the corner of Russell and Somerset. And then another building similar, identical actually, on the Sweetland side. So it fits well in the context and allows for a sensible, logical, orderly pattern of development on this property. So on the next slide, I'll show you it in site plan. Obviously, it's quite a big area, so I'm going to zoom into the parts of the site plan to explain more carefully. But you see the 4 buildings here. So here we've got Somerset at the top of the page, Russell on the left, and Russell on the right, Sweetland on the left. So the 4 buildings are almost identical. Building number 2 is slightly different because building number 2 is on the corner. It's different in that we wanted to make sure that its sidewall onto Russell is nicely animated with windows and balconies. And so there are some slight differences just to allow for that, but otherwise the buildings are all the same. However, they're mirrored and turned so that when you see them in street context, there's quite a bit of variety. So if we go to the next slide, it's zooming in on the first building here. So this building fronts onto Russell. There's an entrance on Russell, balconies on the front, so it's an interesting building to look at. There are also balconies on the back. The majority of dwelling units
Keep going.
above ground have outdoor balcony space. There's also a pathway that leads up to the space that's in between buildings 1, 2, and 3. That center space is raised a little bit, allowing accessible entrance to all 3 of those buildings. They share a ramp, which is it's a great economy in not having to have accessible entrances individually, but it's also a good strategy for long-term care and maintenance because the one ramp can be maintained. The next slide is building 2 and 3. So building 2 is the corner unit, building 3, the inbound unit. You can see they're a mirrored version of each other. The entrance ramp is coming between them to that center raised area. Next slide, please. So this is building 4. This building is on the Sweetland side. Beside building 4, to the north of building 4, you see a driveway leading into some parking in the back. And that parking is on the property of building 4 and building 1. There's also a pathway, so the residents of these buildings would be able to walk in between the buildings. So it kind of connects through the block for those residents of these properties. Next slide, please. Right, so there we have it all put back together again. So it functions as a whole, really, in the flow of pedestrians and the use of the driveway coming into the parking at the back. On the next slide, you'll see the existing ownerships. So the names of the owners are noted on here. It's Tina Martins, beside me, is one of the owners, together with her parents. The ownership of the parcels, though, is divided up this way. And on the next slide, you'll see the ownership structure we would like to implement in order to establish these 4 buildings. All 3 owners would then be owners of different pieces in the post, the after situation. Next slide, I'll show you the proposed easements. So those are the 4 ownerships. In the diagonal hatch, this is an easement primarily for vehicles. In the dotted hatch, there's pedestrian easements, and the pedestrians are also permitted on the vehicular section as well, so that you can see the pedestrian routes through the site. There's also a part that we would like to establish on the yellow area of building 2. This isn't an easement, but it allows us to register on title an agreement for windows on building 1. And that's a fairly typical kind of a clause that we can register on title. It's just more convenient to do so if there's a part that we can signify in that agreement. So in the next slide, I just want to speak to the tests for appropriateness of severance. So we're proposing the consent in order to create the different 4 colors, but also the easements, which starts to look complicated. The point of these divisions is in order to have an orderly development of 4 almost identical buildings that are well suited to the neighborhood. When we consulted with neighbors and the Action Sandy Hill, so one of the active community associations, they were really pleased with this development. They saw it as a very orderly and appropriate way to develop. And so the division of the parts and the easements is what allows us to proceed in that orderly fashion. Next slide, I'm going to, and I should speak to the other performance standards for consents. So orderly, the appropriateness of the the parcels and the amount of development on these parcels, the lot areas, the lot sizes are all zoning compliant. So we're producing lot sizes that are appropriate in the size and orientation. They all have frontage on the street. They're all well serviced, and there are no grading issues. So the properties are relatively flat. So it's a pretty simple approach on that front.
So just when you're talking about being well serviced, you're about to put in 40 apartment units in an area, replacing how many housing units right now?
13.
Okay, I lived in Sandy Hill. The sewers are old, the water lines are old. The stormwater management system isn't necessarily 100%. Are you 100% convinced that you've got adequate water supply and you have adequate reserve capacity in the sewer system and that the stormwater management system can handle what's going to be produced by these 4 buildings?
Yes, we are. So staff haven't raised any concern with respect to this project. And I'm working on another project on Sweetland, other projects in the neighborhood that also staff have not identified any concerns about capacity.
Okay, thanks.
So the next 2 slides, I'll just explain our variance requests. The variances are only for building 2. So buildings 1, 3, and 4 are entirely zoning compliant. Building 2 is the corner building, and we're asking for 2 variances for that building. They're both with respect to the rear yard condition. So the yellow rectangle that you see on the screen there is the required interior yard. The interior yard provision within the zoning bylaw is generally interpreted to be intended to ensure a green center of the block. Often, when we draft up a standard block layout and draw on that interior rectangle, it is part of the center greenness in the block where the trees and grass is in the middle. Whereas in this orientation of buildings and this block formation, it ends up off to the corner and not in the center. So it's not really fulfilling the intent of the bylaw. And imposing that setback requirement, that interior yard, takes a bite out of that building and would make it no longer similar to the others. So we lose that efficiency in construction if we take that bite out. And it doesn't seem to benefit in any way to impose that setback. Next slide, please. There it is, seen in closer detail. So also on this slide, you'll see the rectangular soft landscaping area. So if we just apply the 4 tests, first of all, to that yellow setback area, the change is small. The impact is significant in that if we were to impose it, it would significantly reduce the efficiency of the whole development. So eliminating it is very appropriate in terms of producing a good supply of housing stock. We're not defying the zoning intent in any way. In fact, our plan shows a number of trees being added throughout the development. So though there isn't that typical green center of the block piece that we're complying with, just because of the orientation of things, we certainly are planting trees. And this certainly meets the intention of the official plan for intensification in an orderly fashion. So now with respect to that rectangular landscaped area, the zoning bylaw requires a rectangular area of the size shown on the screen, but specifies that it shouldn't be including obstructions like window wells. So on the next slide, you'll see in yellow those window wells highlighted. So our variance is really just to allow those window wells to exist. They allow for those basement units to not feel like basements, really. They would allow for the windowsills in the basements to come quite low and for those rooms to be really lovely and bright. So they improve the quality of the housing. They're valuable. They reduce the area of that landscaped area by 12%, which is pretty insignificant. There is still space for tree planting on this property itself of the building number 2. You'll see a proposed tree assigned just to the right of that rectangle. in terms of the official plan focuses on the quantity of new homes and the desire to increase tree canopy to 40%. So we're certainly fulfilling that intent. So last of all, I just wanted to speak to one of the comments from planning staff with respect to the private approach bylaw. We've been in touch with the city transportation engineer, and they have informed us that they would accept the existing proposed, sorry, not the existing, but the proposed location of the driveway onto Sweetland. And if we could go forward 2 slides. There we go. So this is a photo on the Sweetland side. Where you see the star is on the neighbor's driveway, and we are proposing a driveway just to the right of that. It's our proposed driveway just to the right of that that is under discussion. And it's a difference of 15 centimeters in the location of that driveway that's under discussion. The traffic engineer feels that the location we've proposed is fine, provided that we're meeting certain performance standards so that we are a safe distance from the vehicular access on our neighbor. They're actually, as you can see in the photo, almost 10 feet away to their vehicular access because they use their driveway only for garbage storage. We need to ensure that there are adequate sight lines, but as you can see, it's a wide open space and that we're not creating any traffic hazard. So we have a small number of cars proposed to come in and out of our driveway next to the garbage location on our neighbor's property. One of my coworkers dropped by yesterday to talk to the people living in this adjacent building who expressed that there are no concerns right now with the movement of garbage in and out of the driveway and couldn't imagine any concern with the driveway next to it. Everything seems to be functioning fine here. On the next slide, you'll see this in plan, our proposal in plan. So just above our property line is their existing garbage driveway. We're proposing a driveway running parallel to that on our side of the property line. And I think whether it is 15 centimeters further to the right or left is really inconsequential when it comes to safety and the movement of vehicles. So that's all I have to share today. I'm happy to answer questions.
Thank you, Ms. Hill. We note that there are 11 conditions requested by the city which you have agreed to.
Yes.
And you have no problems with the, excuse me, the 3 standard conditions that the committee will impose as well?
They were listed in the document that we received?
Yep.
Yes, that's fine.
Any questions, comments from the members? Mr. Coakley.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I guess I have 2 questions, issues on page 4 of your submission. If it were possible to pull up the slide that has all 4 buildings, I think it might help. Yeah, thank you. So I guess my first question in your document, and it's the discussion of the interior yard area. You've got a statement, the purpose of this bylaw provision is to ensure that adequate open outdoor space is provided to residents, as you explained. There is outdoor open space provided in the corner yard and rear yard of the subject property, as well as shared picnic space in between the buildings. Is that a specific location on this map somewhere, or is it just the space and, you know, you can go out and have a picnic if you want to?
So we had shown a picnic table. Planning staff had pointed out that our easements didn't cover the picnic table. And so then there was the question of, you know, who's using the picnic table?
Well, that's my question.
Yeah. So the confusion really begins with the fact that our clients will be owning and operating the properties together. And they own dozens of properties that they manage in Sandy Hill. And so it was my office's oversight that we describe the picnic table as shared when there isn't an easement over it. So it would be more accurate to say that they have lots of outdoor space on the property of building 2. Because there are corner lots, they've got all the landscaping all the way around. In the immediate term, they absolutely can use the picnic area on their neighbor's property, but we're not proposing to put that under easement. So in the very long term, it would be incorrect. For that reason, we submit a revised cover letter removing that language.
Well, I would push back. Why is it not in the easements? I fully understand that the current owners would treat the 4 units as a sort of, even though individually owned, would treat it as a sort of a common, but given that we're severing, any one of these can be sold separately, and a new owner could decide to be surety.
Well, I think though we wanted to allow for the possibility that a new owner, it might not suit a new owner to share in that way. And there's absolutely lots of space for picnicking on the property of building 2. So we preferred to go with a severance pattern that was a little bit more customary, sticking to paths of travel. There's space for a picnic table in the rear yard of building 2. And in the rear yard of building 1, and 4. So you could divide it all up.
But so, okay, so now your argument comes down to, well, we don't want to comply with the bylaw because it makes the building look different from the other 3.
Well, yes, but also that we do see that there is a lot of outdoor space, not in that one little rectangle, but elsewhere on that property too.
Although I doubt if anyone's going to go and have a picnic along Somerset or Russell. So there's not that much. If you look along the side and the back. Anyway, okay, so I mean, quite frankly, if you had said it was part of the easements, I wouldn't have had a problem. Now I'm afraid you've given me a problem. My second question, and this is just more clarification than anything. You're showing what looks to me like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 parking spots coming off the driveway to I'll say to the top, because I'm not sure about my north, south, east, and west here, to the top of building 4. So as I understand it, you've got kind of 5 units that are on a piece of land associated with building 4. And then you seem to have 2 parking spaces connected to the piece of land with building 1. Is that correct?
That's correct.
How does a car get into or out of, as the case may be, number 7 and number 8? Have you got turning circles for us to show that somebody can actually manage to drive in and then turn their car around and drive out, or are they going to have to back in or back out? Because quite frankly, I mean, I'm not a traffic expert, so I'll give you that. But to my mind, the white space in building 3 doesn't look to me as if that's enough space to turn vehicle 7 around.
I don't have diagrams with me to share with you, but those are typical aisle widths. I think it would have been helpful. Oh, actually, you can zoom in on that center of that slide. That might be helpful. There we go. So you can see the backup space behind all of those parking spaces is the typical backup space in a parking lot or a parking garage.
But how does car 7 back out and turn around?
So they would have to do a 1, 2, 3, 4 arcs to turn out. I think it would be unlikely that they would.
I mean, I realize this isn't part of a variance. To my mind, that looks as if that looks a bit like a mess waiting to happen. But you know, that's got nothing to do with the variance, so that's fine.
Okay.
But I mean, I simply would point out that though that we have raised this concern in other contexts where we have wanted to actually see the turning circles to make sure that I'm assuming you're not required to provide parking under these for this building.
No.
So that's fine. But, you know, were they required, we would want to see the turning circles to make sure that the parking spaces were actually functional. And yeah, this one just doesn't look it to me. But anyway, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Coakley. Ms. Lecquier, you had some questions? No, no questions. Okay. All right. Thank you, Ms. Hill. We have several people on the agenda who are on our speakers list. Mr. Hyam, is he here? Either remotely or in person?
He was planning to attend online.
Okay.
Yep.
There we go.
Hi there.
Hi there.
See you hear me? Great. Thank you for the opportunity. I don't think I'll take too long.
Can you give us your, before you start, just give us your municipal address for the record, please.
Yeah. So my name's Steve Hyam. I live at 153 Russell Avenue, which is directly across the street from the proposed development, and specifically buildings 1 and 2. And I'm actually here to express my general support for the project. I'm fortunate enough to live in a detached home, but I'm fully aware, as you all are, of the housing shortage our city is facing, and that's particularly acute in Sandy Hill. So we urgently need more density, and this does appear to be a reasonable mid-rise development that I think aligns pretty well with the architectural character of the neighborhood. In addition to that, the current site at 146 Russell Avenue has effectively been left by its owners as a construction landfill site for the last few years, which has been a blight on the street. So I'm quite happy to see that developed as well. I will note as a concern that several of my neighbors on both sides of my home who may be online today, might even be speaking, have expressed concern that the completion of these buildings may block the afternoon sunlight that our homes receive. So there is a question of whether or not a shadow analysis has been done. And I think that would probably help ensure support among those of us whose homes will be most directly impacted along Russell. But beyond the issue of sunlight, I spoke with Rosalind Hill last week to share a couple of other concerns and suggestions, which I'll quickly reiterate here for the benefit of the committee. So first, I highlighted the importance of preserving tree cover in the area. I was disappointed to read in the tree report that we will be losing a very prominent Manitoba maple tree at the corner of Russell and Somerset. And I think that really underscores the importance of the other remaining less prominent tree that is also on that corner. In the report, it's scheduled to stay where it is, but I just want to stress that we will really be paying attention to the remaining tree cover. We often lose trees when developments take place in Sandy Hill. So that is a priority, and I'm glad to see that that was included as a condition of approval, that there will be a revised tree information report. I also suggested to Rosalind that pedestrian connections between the buildings and Russell Avenue be better reflected in the plans. I saw in the documents in the agenda today that there is an easement to Russell, but in the documents that were shared with residents, that wasn't clear in the diagram. But I think that there's a real opportunity to strengthen connectivity between some of the blocks between Russell to access Annie-Putagook Park, and for residents of the new development to be able to have multiple modes of connectivity within the community. And so I'm just hoping that residents won't be prohibited from using the easement, because I think it could, help us have a new connection to the park. And the last thing that I stressed to Rosalind was exploring the potential for ground floor retail on Somerset Street East. As I'm sure the committee knows, the official plan for the City of Ottawa designates Somerset as a minor corridor, which supports micro retail and small scale locally oriented commercial uses. And, I understand that given the current economic conditions, residential space might understandably take priority, but I would have liked to have seen a longer term view for Somerset, designing those ground floor units to allow for maybe a future conversion to commercial use would offer some flexibility and strengthen the street's potential as a mixed use corridor. But as designed, I don't see how retail would ever be possible, which may come to be seen as a missed opportunity. So that was effectively my feedback on the project. Again, generally quite supportive of it, and I thank you for the opportunity to contribute.
Thank you. Ms. Hill, the comments from your neighbor regarding retail, I note that the zoning is R4UC 480-C, which means that commercial uses are permitted on this site.
Yes, that's correct. So I reassured Mr. Hickam on the phone last week that should anyone choose to open a commercial use in these new buildings down the road, that the zoning would permit that.
Okay. And you heard his comments about the easement
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah.
pedestrian access.
So we're in this process, we're not able to establish easements that are open to the public, but we are certainly establishing easements for the residents of these potential 40 dwelling units.
Okay. And his comments about the tree cover on the site, I'm assuming that I see that one of the conditions is a revised tree information report. Has that been submitted to the city?
Yeah, I believe it has. And I would direct you to look at all the proposed new trees. We are quite conscious of the need for tree cover here.
Right. Thank you, Ms. Hill. We also have, thank you, Mr. Hyam. We also have Louisa Harcook and Daoud Hemned on the speakers list by remote today. Are they there? They're not there. Okay. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to speak to this application? Please come forward. Okay. Hit the green button.
Hi, I'm my name is Xu. I'm the 149 Russia Avenue owner. I'm not. This is the label, 151 Russia Avenue. Then, and so I lived since I bought my house. I lived in here about 3 years. So I'm new here from China. So now I hope the house lived a good place. So I have some questions about the property. The one is the noise, because the apartment, I guess this is a bigger bigger 4 buildings, and per building, I guess at least 6 or 8 units. I don't know the plan about the building, every building. So normally Sandy here is the university. A lot of students lived there. So this building, I live the place Sandy here, so I know the building, the next building, a new apartment. The student lived there, make a big noise in summertime in the backyard. This is the questions. The second, I think, is the parking. Sandy here in the typically in the summer, in the winter, the very dangerous. No, the only my house in front. My house is the Russia Avenue. Only my size, my house in front of my house, the size is allowed parking in public. So the winter time, the typical this time, this winter, the snow very big and block the car in for the residents lived here. And I think there's, I feel the apartment not enough for parking. So I guess it's a lot of issue parking. And the other questions, let me check. Yeah. Oh, yeah. The building is high than before. The original detached house is high. So I feel they block the light and the sun for my house. And these three questions are very important. And the other, I confused the building one, the apartment one. They built the apartment overbuilt. I guess the ruler in Ottawa City building policy, the original house, detached house, the zoom, just half. But I saw the picture is double foundation. So this, I feel confused. And the other questions, I agreed. This office expert the questions. He just say show the parking three parking closed. So how driver parking inside the three parking place? I think nobody can organize that and fix in the parking. So this is my speak. My English is so. So I just my feeling.
Your English is fine.
Thank you.
Regarding noise, as a former resident of Sandy Hill, I sympathize. It is not a quiet neighborhood with the university. However, noise is really not before us. We do have a bylaw department, and they are very busy on a regular basis in Sandy Hill. And that really is your is the route you want to follow. As far as parking is concerned, no parking is required for this property. The proponent is going to provide 7 on site, but right now the city of Ottawa says we don't have to provide parking, and that's it. We don't have any control over that at this committee. These folks are meeting the bylaw. In fact, they're putting in parking where none is required. So that's really not before us. That is, and quite frankly, those minimums are going to be in the new zoning bylaw as well. And I'd suggest that if you have a real problem with parking in Sandy Hill, you should start talking to your councillor before the new zoning bylaw gets adopted in November. It's an issue right across the city. Unfortunately, we can't deal with it because this is not before us today. they meet the requirement. In fact, they're putting in parking when none is required. As far as the height of the new construction is concerned, you're not exceeding height, Ms. Hill. You're within the limits.
No.
Yeah, they're meeting the height requirement of the zoning bylaw. As far as the size of the building is concerned, those buildings are very close to meeting exactly what the zoning bylaw allows, with the exception of two small variances for building one.
Two.
Building two. You probably have some issues with sunlight. I don't believe that the department requires sun shadow analysis to this type of development. Am I correct on that?
No, there are no shadow analysis that are required for this particular project. Only when we would look at increasing the height.
Yeah, so they're within the height restriction. How many floors would you ask a proponent to provide a sun shadow study?
Well, that would normally take place during our site plan control process, but it would really depend on the context of the development as well as the surrounding area. But normally we would. Usually we would start asking for a shadow analysis after the fifth story.
Okay. And these buildings are not 5 stories tall. So unfortunately, sun shadowing requirements or studies requirements are not being recommended by the city.
Yes, I'm her neighbor, in fact. So yeah, my English is not that great, but I'll do my best. I'll do my best.
Your name and address, sir?
Okay, I'm at 151 Russell Avenue, and she's at 149.
Okay.
So we saw
And your name,
nice
sir? And your-
pictures before, I guess.
Your name, sir? Your name for the record?
Donald Murray.
Okay, please continue.
We saw nice pictures, in fact, when you started your presentation, but we haven't seen any picture of the Russell Avenue because just in front of building number 1 on Russell Avenue, there are single home, family home, in fact. I have one, she has one, my neighbor has one, and young kids are in those homes. Like she has a son. In my home, there are 3 young kids from 5 to 8, and the other neighbor has a young girl, 5 years old. So, and there are many others on the street, but there are those specific houses just in front of the building number 1, if you want. Just to give you a little bit of context. And I can understand, and you can't keep a land without anything on it. I guess any owner will want to build something on that land, and I understand also that the city of Ottawa needs some apartments for the people around. I think apartments are missing everywhere, so it's fully understandable. The only point is I cannot believe that there is no requirement for parkings when someone build apartment buildings. It's unbelievable, but no, it's crazy because city of Ottawa are quick in giving ticket because people are parked on the streets, but they don't they don't require people to ensure they have parkings when they build buildings. It's unbelievable, but not your fault. I understand.
Is there any permit parking on Russell? So there's permit parking on Russell Avenue?
On the street?
Yeah.
Yeah, there is 1 hour's parking. 1 hour parking.
No, I meant permit parking where you buy a
Yeah,
permit to park on the
there
street.
is. Yeah.
So there's
But you understand that if you build more apartment buildings with more cars, you cannot put more than so many cars. That's the issue. So no, that this is only, I understand that you're not going to resolve that, but that's a major issue for people that are living on that street with young family. I hope the city of Ottawa can understand that also. For the height, I guess the height of the building, I understand the concern of my neighbor here. She's going to be right in front of that building. And if you look around, I'm not sure that the other building around will be higher. I think most of the other building will be lower than this building. And also, if you restrict the size of that building, you may resolve the park requirement for building number 2. If they reduce the size of building number 1, then you'll have enough room to have the required size for the park, that is required for building number 2. So, it's something that just would like you to consider when you will do your approbations, that, or maybe that I'm not saying that I'm against the project. I'm just saying that with small changes, that project will be probably more acceptable, not only for me, for her, but for all the other residents on that street. Because Russell Avenue, in fact, there are many young families on that street, and people enjoy the environment, I would say. So we'll like to keep that same type of environment if possible. That's the only point we want to make.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for your input. Coakley, you had a question? Comment?
Yeah, maybe if I could just kind of follow up on that point, and at the risk of opening the hornet's nest that we got into with one of the previous applications around, studio versus 3-bedroom versus 2-bedroom. You have not told us, and I'm assuming you don't have to because you're fully zoning compliant, but can you tell us what you expect in terms of the units? I'm imagining that a number of your prospective tenants will be students at the University of Ottawa. I would imagine that the vast majority of them might make a lot of party noise, but probably don't bring cars to, some will bring cars to Ottawa, but most probably would not. So I'm just, what is the likely parking because parking is a concern in many parts of the city. Like, have you kind of looked at what the parking implications are likely to be, and or what your expectation of the number of people who might want cars, have cars?
Yeah, so I'd like to start with the first part of your question, actually. We are happy to share that we have a mix of dwelling unit sizes, including bachelors, 1-bedrooms, 2-bedrooms, and 3-bedrooms in a pretty even mix, which means that these buildings would be welcome to families with young children. And quite a mixed demographic. They're not intended solely for students. They're designed with more generous bedrooms than many of the buildings in the neighborhood that are more student focused. They also have larger and I would say more functional living dining kitchen spaces than some of the comparable units in the neighborhood. When it comes to parking, my client certainly had an interest in having some parking because there are some proportion of households who are still quite car dependent. But the neighborhood really truly is one of the few neighborhoods in Ottawa that is very walkable. And so the idea of housing the majority of these 40 households without cars isn't a concern to my client group.
Thank you, Member Coakley. Thank you, Ms. Hill. Is there anyone else online who would like to speak to this application? Second, ma'am.
No, Mr. Chair. There's no one else, Mr. Chair.
Just a final comment, ma'am.
Okay, I have the other questions about the garbage. So I guess there's a lot, the apartment will have some garbage, so they rent, some people rent the apartment, so no no place to garbage. So I have the picture, the garbage you put in my backyard and my parking place. So this is issue for the apartment. Yeah.
Ms. Hill, how are you going to handle the garbage issue?
Buildings 1, 3, and 4 have garbage sheds in the rear yards. Building 2 has a designated space inside the building for garbage storage.
So every Thursday, all that goes to the street.
Yeah, that's right.
So you won't be having a garbage problem with your new neighbors, because they're going to be properly provided with a place to put it. Any other comments? No? Okay. All right.
I have to, so I'm a new here. I think that Sandy Hill, all the detached house is a history building, but all the demolished and become the new apartment. I think the 2 or 3 years after pandemic, at least 20 or 30 house, detached house demolished and built the new apartment. You can check the date.
Well,
Okay.
we have heritage legislation in this province, and if you don't meet either a section 3 or a section 4, you are not protected, and your house can be sold and come down and be replaced. That's the way it is in the province of Ontario.
I would love to speak to this if you don't mind,
Sure, go right ahead.
committee. First, I should apologize for my parents not being here. My dad is 83 years old and overseeing a renovation at the moment. He's plastering, and my mom is 82 years old and is overseeing the replacement of all the windows at a property we own on 371 Nelson. So that leaves me to come and address you. We've been in the neighborhood. My parents bought their first home in 1959 in Sandy Hill. And we've taken great pride in purchasing properties that were the neighborhood crack house. We purchased actually one of the designated heritage properties on Sweetland, known as Smart House, and they actually won a conservation award from the city of Ottawa for renovating that. They saved it from demolition. And so this is our business. We take great pride in our properties. I'm sure the neighbors have seen my mom. She walks the streets 6 out of 7 days a week. She doesn't drive. My dad's always in the neighborhood with his, I think it's a 2000 Ford F-150, picking up garbage that missed that Thursday pickup that you're talking about. So we continue to want to live in the neighborhood, take care of the properties that, we've purchased over the years. And we look forward to this project, not only, for ourselves, but for the neighborhood, because I grew up on Russell myself, and look forward to working on this project with the neighborhood and with yourselves. Thank you.
Final comments, Ms. Hill?
Thank you. Well, we have designed and proposed 4 buildings that are of really high quality. Brick and stone all the way around. Large balconies, so 4 and 5 foot deep balconies that are 8 feet and more in width. So the kinds of balconies that aren't constructed in the neighborhood on student rentals. These are built for people to rent dwelling units and stick around. Quality spaces, both indoors and outdoors. This is a simple and orderly kind of approach to development that's going to bring some really great new homes into an already great neighborhood. The buildings themselves are sized really sensitively to the neighborhood. They are the same height as their neighbors along Somerset. And the building footprints are small and sensitive to the pattern of development around them, with lovely spaces in between. With this approach to providing quality homes, quality units, quality indoor and outdoor spaces, also the use of quality materials. I feel really great about this development, and I hope that it can proceed as planned.
How far are you along in creating the Juma?
Oh, that hasn't been begun.
Pardon me?
That hasn't been started.
But it will be fairly comprehensive, I'm assuming.
Oh, yeah, for sure. So there would be, we would like to establish the easement rights.
Yeah.
And then in addition, a joint use and maintenance agreement that would be taking care of all the other bits and pieces as well.
Rather than spend the money on a condominium application.
No.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Hill, and thank you to the other participants. I think we're going to reserve on this application because I know at least one of our members has some concerns with variances. And you will have our decision in your hands in 10 days. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. We now have the final application of the afternoon, 97th Sweetland Avenue. And this is an application to permit the construction of an addition at the rear of the existing duplex dwelling, converting it into a 6-unit low-rise apartment building with reduced rear yard, interior side yard setbacks, and reduced front window coverage. And the Mr. Beachman is the applicant. You're back before us.
Yeah.
All right.
Yes, I am.
Please proceed.
Yeah, so I think the best will be to start with the presentation.
Yeah.
Yeah, so present, it's a small building on a large lot. It's a duplex with 2 small units. They will stay and they will most likely be rented to students as they are now. At the back, I'm proposing to add an addition, which will have 4 units. It's a 3-story addition, 4 units, each one 4 bedrooms. So good size units, about 1,100 square foot each. Should be good for a family, should be good for anything really. The idea is to ask for about $3,000 per unit in today's market. Families, I believe, can come with this rent if they have the need. So I will show the next slide, please. Yeah, so this is the typical unit. So we see on the top part, the top half is the addition, and there are 4 bedrooms. Why am I showing it? Because I need the minor variance to reduce the backyard, so I will be able to put 4 bedrooms. Otherwise, I can only put there 2-bedroom units, which are less suitable for families. Okay, next slide, please. So this is just, I'm really reducing the backyard from a depth of 11.2 meters, I believe, to 9.2 meters backyard. It will still give us backyard, 1 rectangular space of 103 square meters, which is not bad as a backyard, really. Next slide, please. So this is the site plan, and we can see that at the back there will be still very nice rectangular space as a backyard. There will be a picnic table, space for barbecue, 2 trees, shed for bicycles, maybe for lawnmower. The other minor variance I'm asking is to reduce the side setback only on the south side, so on the bottom, from 1.5 meters to 1.2. That will allow me to provide a little bit larger common area inside. And that shouldn't be a problem for the neighbors to the south, because the neighbors on the south, it's facing their backyard. So they still have the depth of 6, 7, 8 meters there. So getting 30 centimeters of this 6, 7, 8 meters still leaves there good distance between my house, my windows, and their dwellings. Next slide. So just to give, even though I'm asking to reduce the rear setback to 9.2 meters, the properties around me, they all have already considerably smaller backyards. And sure, that's just because they are complying with what was, I guess, the bylaw at the turn of the previous century. But I'm providing still a little bit more than they are providing. By the way, 91.5 Sweetland, that's recent. It was constructed about maybe 15 years ago, and they were allowed to go with 7.6 meters. So I'm asking for 9.2 instead of 11.2, I believe. Next slide, please. So that just shows showing that their backyards are already smaller than mine is going to be. So definitely I'm in the bulk part of what the neighborhood is right now, even with the reduced backyard depth. So let's go for the next one. So yeah, that's just putting the numbers right on the screen and showing that the side yard will still be, even then there will be a long distance to the properties there. It's just reducing from 7.8 to 7.5 or from 8.8 to 8.5 meters. Next slide, please. Yeah, and that's, I guess, just showing what I'm talking about. Where are the properties that are to my south and my current building there. That's it for my presentation. I also have my the letter where I'm explaining and why my variances are minor and how it fits there with the building. So
Well, if you could walk us through the 4 tests, that'd be appreciated.
Yes, so it's okay, yeah. I didn't print it. I not very, but I do have it here. Yes, I have it open here exactly for this. So yeah. So the first one is, so why is it required? So it's required because I would like to provide 4-bedroom units rather than 2-bedroom units in the additions to accommodate families. So that's why it is required. Now, just I forgot to mention, there are also 2 minor variances that are for the existing building, meaning the existing building, it cannot be moved, it's there, it's complying with side yard from 1920 roughly. Yeah. Also the coverage of the windows there is complying with what was
That's an existing condition.
It's existing, I'm not moving it, it blends very nicely with the street. It's a red brick building, and it looks very well on this street, and it will keep looking the same after I'm done there. So why they are minor? They are minor because I will still be providing for in my opinion, very good sized backyard. Rectangular space, 103 meters. They can have their barbecue, and there is a sitting area, there is everything. Again, reducing the distance to the neighbors by 30 centimeters is not an issue because it's not facing their side yards, it's facing their backyard. So there's still a lot of room between the buildings, even without the 30 centimeters. That's why it's minor. It's desirable for the neighborhood because we want to increase intensification. We want to provide houses for units for families, 4-bedroom units. And I can go here with this building to up to 8 units, but I'm going with 6 only. And hence there is also more side yard where the old structure remains. There is a good sized front yard. I'm adding some trees, make it really nice. And the last one. And this is the general intention, I believe, for an R4 UD zone right now, is to provide good decent size units, intensify a little bit, but not going overboard. So I'm not consuming the all allowable square footage of the lot on which I will be allowed to build. I'm consuming a decent chunk on it, but I could have done bigger. I'm not going bigger. That's it.
Okay. Any questions from the members of the panel?
It's not.
It's not.
Just, can the coordinator put the presentation back up? I just want to see the floor plan again. I think it was slide 3. I just found it hard to read, so I don't know.
Yes,
if
I
it's zooming.
I struggled
sorry, side.
with it. I wanted to put it horizontally and I couldn't figure out how, unfortunately. But anyway, so what you see at the bottom, that's the existing.
Yeah,
that's
can I see
staying.
if you could scroll up?
Yeah.
Yeah, I want to see the new ones.
Yes,
So
exactly.
this is, okay, 1, 2, and so this is the 4 bedrooms that's being proposed.
Yes,
And I see there's a lot of bathrooms.
2 bathrooms,
There's 2
one with a
bathrooms.
bathtub and one with a shower.
One with a shower,
And
okay.
that's again taking into consideration families that need a bathtub, not just showers.
Okay, that's good, thank you.
And there is a laundry room there.
If we could put the site plan up.
No, that's not the site.
No.
Yeah, that's the site.
Okay. So I'm looking at your new construction and you're only going to provide a 1.2 meter path along your south property line, front to back.
Yeah.
Well, not all the way from the front, from the just about the start of the new construction to the end of the newly constructed building. Is your garbage?
Yeah, the garbage
Enclosures in the rear?
disclosure is
there?
in front of it. It's not the garbage disclosure is so this path of 1.2 meters won't be used to carry the garbage, because if you will go go west.
Because you, I mean,
Yeah, you see so this is the garbage disclosure there, right?
All right.
And so there is ample, here we have 1.5 meter walkway. We can make it a little more as well, because I have so much green space that if we can just also widen.
The city definitely recommends a 1.5 meter walkway if you're going to have garbage storage in your rear yard.
That's why we designed it to be 1.5.
Okay.
But and again, I wanted to keep their parking spot. We're just going back to this, and they told me, no way you can have the parking, so.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Thank you very much. Is there anyone in the hall who wants to like to speak to this matter? Mr. Ho.
Sorry, can I just follow up on that very last point? So you're not providing any parking?
I'm not providing parking. I wanted to provide parking. The city said I'm not allowed to provide parking.
Okay, that's fine. I just wanted to clarify the situation. Because, you know, like I said to one of the previous, parking is always an issue, and it's a legitimate issue because, yeah, we are still a car-oriented society. As long as
always
we are.
apply for a variance.
And they told me that that's the one that I have no chance to get, but
Yeah. Yeah.
I would, I wanted to apply for a variance. And the city told me there is no chance they will approve it.
It's up to you to decide what you want to apply
They know
for.
better than me what is
but
doable and
We
what is
make the
not.
decision on variances, not the planning department. Okay, is there anyone online who would like to speak to this matter?
No, Mr. Chair.
No, okay. All right, were you okay to vote on this? Thank you very much for your presentation. It looks like you're going to be providing much needed family housing in Sandy Hill, which is definitely needed in that part of the city. I have no issues with this application as presented, Mr. Coakley. You're fine, you're fine. All right, all in favor of this application? Your application is granted. Good luck with your project.
Thank you.
And that concludes the agenda. Therefore, this meeting of the Committee of Adjustments